have a quorum, so we will start. Okay, thank you all for coming, and I'm sure that we will have others will join us a little later, but we're ready to go. So please call to order and roll call, please.
Director Bro,
Here.
Director Chambers,
Present.
Director Cohen, Director Duncan,
Present.
Director Hamilton,
Here.
Director Hardy,
Present.
Director Jordan,
Present remotely.
Director Kiesel, Director Webster, Lincoln, Director Manalo,
Present.
Director Mellinger,
Present.
Director Mickelson, Director Montano, Director Nash,
Present.
Director Piccolotti, Director Pierce,
Present.
Director Ragsdale,
Present.
Director Schneider, Director Showalter,
Here.
Director Stevenson, Director Stone,
Here.
Director Vella,
Here.
Director Weed, Director Zichterman. You have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you very much. And everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and may I ask past chair pairs to lead us into the pledge, please. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. All right. So good evening, director, staff, and interested citizens. To start off, I would like to remind directors that we do have a director attending by telephone, so all votes will need to be by roll call. Tonight, we have a presentation by the San Francisco PUC on how they plan for droughts. This has been an important topic with several member agencies, and we thank Mr. Ritchie for agreeing to speak with us about this topic. And thank you also, directors, who brought this up to my attention. We have a brief update on BAWSCA's quarterly review of the San Francisco PUC's capital projects. And based on feedback at the BPC, this will be an important but infrequent report to the board about major projects which have the potential to impact reliability and rates. In addition to that, we have a presentation on emergency resilience, an important aspect of the work on Strategy 2050. While we generally focus on long-term water supply reliability, it can be equally important to prepare for and manage emergencies. This topic looks at the potential for BAWSCA to help member agency do that. And that would be it for that. So we'll move on to the Board Policy Committee report. Director Ragsdale. Oh, there she is.
Yes, thank you. We had our board policy committee. I want to once again thank our members. Everyone either attends or lets us know they can't be there or attends remotely, and that really helps with quorum and planning, so thank you. And the other thing I'll say is the minutes are accurate, and we were very pleased with the lease terms, very favorable terms, and we did recommend unanimously that the lease be approved by the full board. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Director Ragsdale. We do have a question, Director Schneider.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director Ragsdale. Question about the minutes. I did listen into the video on that, and I don't know the answer to this, and this is why I'm asking it. When there are BAWSCA members that have a project going on with SFPUC, like they are listed on page 7 of tonight's packet, Alameda Creek Recapture Project and the Regional Groundwater Storage and Recovery Project, are those benefiting all BAWSCA members, or does that benefit the retail customers within those BAWSCA areas on that. It's not in the amendment, it wasn't discussed. I just think in the future it would be helpful for all of us to know that when there is a BAWSCA agency having a joint project with SFPUC, clearly who is and isn't paying for it and who is benefiting from that. Ultimately, I think we all understand that every gallon we save is a gallon all of us have for the future, but if we could be more specific. And then I had a question, watching Director Anders' questions. I really appreciated her comment on SFPUC wanting to tear down and or rebuild a building just for records. And I'm currently doing a research project now with the National Archives and a bunch of other archives regarding regional agency impacts on my city on that. So I thought that was a really good point. Like, what are we paying for that doesn't have to be done, especially when there are regional archiving agencies, and when there's so much so much office space that, like, San Mateo County is buying at pennies on the dollar on that. So if those could be topics at a future meeting, it will help, especially for those of us who can't speak up at those meetings unless we happen to be sitting in the room. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback, and the chair has heard the feedback too. He sets the agenda, and appreciate that. And yes, I also agreed with Director Andrews' comments that aren't we digitizing things? So that was a point well taken, and I'm sure was listened to. Thank you.
Very good. Tom, any comments? No? Good. Okay. So we'll move on to the consent calendar where we have, oh, that's right, yes. Do we have any public comments? Dr. Snyder, you're still good? You're good? Okay. All right, good. Hearing none, we'll go to item number 4, which is the consent calendar. And we have the approval of the minutes of May 21st, and receive and file the budget status report, receive and file the investment report, and the authorization of to extend the office lease. Those are the 4 items. Any questions on that? Director Broll?
Move approval is submitted.
We have a second by Director Minalo. Very good. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Director Bro,
Yes.
Director Chambers,
Aye. Yes. Yes, legal.
Could we just call for public comment before you do the vote?
Before the vote,
Yeah.
yes. Public comments, please. Any public comments on item 4, the consent calendar? Thank you. Hearing none. Do you have any comments? Okay. Roll call, please. Can we start from the beginning on roll call?
yes.
Thank you.
Director Andrews, Director Bro,
Yes again.
Director Chambers,
Yes.
Director Cohen, Director Duncan,
Yes.
Director Hamilton,
Yes.
Director Hardy,
Yes.
Director Jordan,
Yes.
Director Kiesel, Director Lincoln, Director Manalo, Director Mellinger,
Yes.
Director Mickelson, Director Montano, Director Nash,
Yes.
Director Piccolotti, Director Peters,
Yes.
Director Ragsdale,
Yes.
Director Schneider,
Yes.
Director Showalter,
Yes.
Director Stevenson, Director Stone,
Yes.
Director Vella,
Yes.
Director Weed, Director Zichterman.
Yes.
Passes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 5, which is the SFPUC report and SFPUC water operations and design drought. Allison Castama. Okay, very good.
Thank you. I'm going to start with a water supply update, and then we'll transition into the water operations and
Thank
design
you.
drought.
Thank you.
Thank you, my dear. All right. So this is water supply update for ending at midnight earlier this week, Monday. So I've circled here just for benefit. Hopefully, I'm not sure if you can see it there. All right, so as you guys have probably heard, our supply conditions are pretty good. We're at 97.5% in Hetchy against a typical 98.7% of total maximum storage. System supply is actually at 93.1, which is above where it usually is historically, 89.8%. So this is a factor of we filled, you know, you have maybe heard me say this before, where we had a bit more of early runoff, but then we had more snow. So we filled Hetchy a bit earlier, and we're coming a little bit down off Hetchy, but still at a high elevation. This is across the state. You'll see a similar picture. Many of these reservoirs are above their historical average for this time of year. I did circle Don Pedro just for the benefit of seeing it, it being downstream of all of our facilities, of course, and the means for any water to get to the lower Tuolumne River in San Joaquin, because their facility, Don Pedro, Modesto, and Turlock Irrigation District's facility is downstream of our facility. Drought monitor across the state. This is looking fairly similar to what we've seen. I think we see a little dark spot up here creeping in, but this has not changed substantially in the time frame when I last presented. And then precipitation is just slightly under median. We are at pretty close to 100% of water year. Let's see, can I find my pointer? So we're at 30.43 against a 30.92 median for the upcountry. And we're actually we're above, not slightly, 25.98 against 23.35 in the Bay Area. So again, pretty good on the water year in terms of precipitation in those two areas. No precipitation here in July so far. You'll see that red box down here. Not expecting a lot, right? This is a very typical pattern to not really receive much in these 3 months, July, August, September, before the water year starts. Snowpack is effectively melted. I think I showed this previously as well. And then total deliveries are at 224. This is again primarily for last week. Obviously we've seen, last week was pretty cool. Hopefully you felt it cool. I felt it cool in Oakland. So that dropped a little bit, but again, we moved up a little in temperature, so this might jump up in this week. So, but at 224, so we're hitting that summer high. And again, that's close to it's above our 5-year average and above last year. So 5-year average being the yellow and the thin line with the circles being last year. And that's it for this relatively quick water supply update. Happy to answer any questions before we transition to the next portion.
Any question to Allison? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Allison.
Yep. And
Okay.
I'm going to transition us into this slide deck, and Steve is going to present the majority. But we are going to transition into our water operations and design drought. I put this in specifically to give a little bit of a picture so we can orient to what the concept of a design drought is. In particular, I would say if you imagine yourself today, you probably have a paycheck. Imagine that you have a paycheck and maybe the smallest little ad royalty payment from some ad you did 5 years ago that you're still getting a payment off of. But that's your entire income for your family. Tomorrow you could be laid off. You could be hit by a car, you could have an accident, major medical issues, and you're no longer able to receive that paycheck, right? So your income has significantly dropped. Again, if your income is suddenly only disability, a smaller paycheck, or nothing, what would you have done to prepare for that possibility, and how long would it have lasted? And I would suspect that many of us have all gone through this in our heads in terms of what happens tomorrow if I don't have the income that I have. And you may have retirement, you may have savings. I will say that the water system does not have disability. It does not have unemployment, and it does not have anything other than the savings it currently holds in the storage of the system. So with that, I'm going to transition to Steve, who's going to walk through. There's one more thing. Don't forget, your bills and obligations have not gone down. But with that, I'm going to turn this over to Steve, and he'll talk about water operations and design drought.
All right. Thank you, Allison.
Thanks, Allison, for that lead in. I will get into the specifics of our system. I'm going to talk in first a couple of introductory slides that'll cover the general outline of what I'll be talking about, and then get into some very specifics so you can see how it is we plan going forward and how we operate going forward. But for the regional water system, we rely almost exclusively on the Tuolumne River for 85% of our supply and the local surface water supplies here in the Bay Area. Our Tuolumne River water rights are junior to Modesto and Turlock Irrigation District's water rights, meaning they are first when there is limited supply on the river. So we get to divert plenty of water in wet years, but little to none in dry years. That really drives a lot of what we do. So that our Tuolumne River system storage plus water bank that I'll talk about reduces the impact of multi-year droughts. Storage carried over year to year in those storage accounts is our only means to survive a defined drought. We can't predict the end of a multi-year drought, and the consequences of running out of water are enormous. We cannot plan for our supply to be totally used up. We always have to have water. So our approach to drought management is driven by three factors: our water resources, our water rights, and our experience. All water agencies consider these factors in their planning, but how they fit together in a reasonable, credible, and effective plan differs among agencies. For the Tuolumne River, we have storage in our system. That is the key component for us. With Hetch Hetchy storage, Cherry storage, and Eleanor storage, all adds up to about 660,000 acre feet. And then on top of that, we have the Don Pedro Water Bank storage capacity of 570,000 acre feet. This is our upcountry storage. This is what we've got to work with. So let's talk a little bit about, in a fairly simplistic fashion, how the Tuolumne River works among the water agencies that take money from it. The blue highlights here are our system, and the green are the irrigation district's excuse me, water system. So that, that we all have different reservoirs and different parts of the watershed that we draw our original supply from. The way it works is water that comes down the Tuolumne River into Hetch Hetchy Reservoir basically has two places it can go. Either it can go, actually three places. It can go in deliveries to the Hetch Hetchy Regional Water System, it can go into a storage in Hetch Hetchy Reservoir, or it gets released down the Tuolumne River, which is that line going down from the reservoir. In the case of Cherry and Eleanor, all of the water there is used primarily for hydropower generation, and all of that goes down the Tuolumne River down into Don Pedro. The irrigation districts have the water flowing down the other branches of the Tuolumne River, and it goes directly into Don Pedro. The key thing to see here is that all the blue disappears at Don Pedro, because once the water reaches Don Pedro, it belongs to the irrigation districts. It does not belong to San Francisco at that point. So the water going into Don Pedro goes either as deliveries to MID and TID, or it goes into storage there. The key thing about this, the water that passes through our reservoirs and enters Don Pedro, and if we have storage capacity, is stored in the water bank, allowing us to bank water from wet years for use in dry years. This is a legal agreement that protected MID and TID senior water rights while providing us some water supply benefits. But again, all water in Don Pedro belongs to MID and TID, and that includes controlling what goes out as deliveries to their customers and what are releases to the Tuolumne River below Don Pedro Reservoir. So when you look at this whole setup, it really revolves around the Raker Act and how it was composed. So the Raker Act allocated 2,350 CFS, or cubic feet per second, of the flow of the Tuolumne to the Modesto and Turlock irrigation districts, and 4,000 CFS during the 60-day period from April 15th to June 13th. Any flows above those volumes are San Francisco's entitlement for diversion, and for shorthand, we refer to it as water available to the city from the Tuolumne River. This water is either diverted for San Francisco's use, stored in San Francisco's Tuolumne Reservoir storage, credited to water bank, or what we say is spilled to the districts. It can't fit in any of our storage, and so it just goes into Don Pedro in a place where the irrigation districts get full control of it. The key thing that works for us is the water bank. Excuse me. And this all laid out in the fourth agreement under the Raker Act. It established the terms for our participation in the 2.03 million acre feet Don Pedro project, which is owned and operated by the irrigation districts. We paid for 51.71% of the construction cost. And it established the water bank at 570,000 acre feet of storage, which assists in our operations and our drought management. This agreement doesn't have any expiration date, and as I mentioned previously, any water that cannot be captured in the water bank spills to the irrigation districts for their total control. So now I'm going to run through a set of slides that show how this works in terms of water in the river. So what you see here is a graph of the flows that are what we call the natural flow in the Tuolumne River going into Don Pedro. And this is if there were no upstream storage reservoirs constructed. So this is what would be in the river if our reservoirs didn't exist there. Excuse me, pardon me. And if you remember the past of this is a very good series to look at because of the variability in the year types. 2011 there on the left and 2017 there on the right were really big water years. There was a lot of water in the river in those years. And the middle years, particularly 2012, 13, 14, and 15, were very, very drought years. Those were an extreme drought period. And then 2016 was kind of a transitional year. So that was how those years just looked, just as a look at the river without our reservoirs in them. This dashed magenta line is that 2,350 CFS that's owed to the irrigation districts, and 4,000 CFS in part of the year that's owed to the irrigation district. So when you look at that's their maximum entitlements. And when you look about that placed on the graph, that gray spit water is what is the irrigation district's water. That's their actual entitlement because that's what the water was that was in the river that passed down there. The green part here is what San Francisco gets out of the system, what we call water available to the city. And as you see on the far left there in 2011, there are lots of green up there in the hydrograph. And in 2017, it was a huge year. So there was a lot of water, again, that was available for our diversion. But you see in those middle years, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, there was very little water that was available to the city for us to divert. And that's where we have to really worry about our operation when we get into drought periods like that. Just for reference, I just added a yellow line here. That's the full storage of our reservoirs at 660,000 acre feet. And that becomes relevant when you see this line. This blue line represents how much water was stored in each of our collective reservoirs upcountry each year. And you see in 2011, the blue line topped out at the yellow line. 2012, it topped out at the yellow line. 2013, it got pretty darn close. 2014, it's still fairly close. In 2015, it's come down a little bit lower. That's because Cherry and Eleanor are starting to empty out at that point. And we are really relying just on Hetchy storage. And then in 2016, it actually bumped up and got back up and filled up everything. And in 2017, it was just off the charts. So that year was kind of just a great year for water if you really wanted a lot of water. Now,
Mr. Ritchie, Director Showalter, do you want to change seat? There's an empty seat here, because I see you struggling with the sun.
One seat down.
I see the sun is right smack in your eyes. Yeah, we'll have to take care of everybody here, okay? Okay, I'm sorry about that.
No,
yeah, please,
we'll
Steve, go
let her
ahead.
relocate. I want to make
Yeah.
sure that there's no. Got it. Okay. In any event, so the question is, how did we end up filling up the reservoir in all those years? And the answer is in this red line, which is our water bank storage during each of those years. So in 2011, you can see on the line there that's horizontal on the axis, it's flat. That is 570,000 acre feet. the water bank account is full at that point. And then in 2012, you start to dip down a little bit from that full account because we're having to draw on that account for our water supply so that we can get through the year. 2013, oops, that red line starts to dip a bunch more because we are drawing more on the account there, but we're allowing our reservoirs to fill up. 2014 really dipped down. So the water bank account was debited very heavily that year, again, to allow for storage in particularly Hetch Hetchy. And in 2015, it got down to the lowest point in this sequence, which is about 60,000 acre feet. That was the lowest it gotten this year, and that is very close to zero in our world. So we start to worry about it then, because once we empty water bank, the only way to get water to the districts is releasing it from our reservoirs. In this case, that 4-year drought ended at that point, and 2016 was a fairly decent year, and so it started to fill up. It wasn't enough to fill water bank as well, because that didn't get up to the 570,000 acre foot level, but you can see the reservoirs went all the way to the full line. And then in 2017, as I said, it was an overwhelmingly wet year, and everything filled up, and that was that. So that's how we managed through that drought, was basically having the irrigation districts take water out of the water bank during those dry years so that we could store water in our reservoirs. And that's kind of the real essence of the water bank and its value to us. But you get to some questions about this. The one that I think about a lot is, what happens if it continues to be dry? It's all great that we got through 4 years and it got down to almost zero, but what happens if the next year was not a wet year, but a dry year? And I was talking to many of our staff today. People talk about probabilities. When you talk about what year types are going to be, it's just like a coin flip. When you start into the year, you don't know if it's going to be wet or dry. And the same thing with the year after, and the year after, and the year after. You can think you can predict all those things, but you can't. So in essence here, what we did, and this is a total simulation, make sure it's clear, this is not real water, but we said, okay, what if we had 2014 and 2015 happen all over again, just like they did in these 2 years? And that includes the demands as well. So we didn't adjust the demands, but we just said, what if it's a drought going forward? And so we put the 2014 hydrology coupled with the demands on that year, and you can see that the reservoir storage dipped down below 300,000 acre feet to about 280,000 acre feet, something like that. And if you added 2015 on top of that, the reservoir storage gets down to just about 100,000 acre feet, which is dangerously close to what we call dead pool, which is where the bottom of the reservoir is. You can't pull water out of it at that point. So that was just for as an exercise that we wanted to show here, that if you have additional dry years, it starts to get very, very worrisome. And then, not trying to push it too far, it's like, so what happens in the next 2 years? You don't know until you get to those 2 years. That's the key thing about this, is that we got through this last drought, that drought there, because it only lasted for 4 years. But if it lasts for longer, in this case 6 years, it gets pretty worrisome, and if it gets longer than that, it gets darn worrisome. So, when we think of our regional water system, because of our water rights and allocations, storage of wet year water is key. The 87 through 92 drought is the worst on record for us, but extreme two-year droughts could happen at virtually any time. Recently, we've experienced several severe 2-year droughts, 76-77, 87-88, 2014-15, 2020-21. They could happen, and that's the part that we need to be thinking about. What are we going to do in the next year? Regardless of what anybody thinks is going to happen, what are we going to do in the next year? So in the midst of the 78, 87 through 92 drought, SFPUC developed the methodology of assuming 2 additional dry years at the end of a drought. Assuming wet years would not have been prudent, frankly, because, you know, if it's a wet year and you've assumed it, great, everything's super. If you've assumed a wet year and you've acted according to that, you're getting yourself deeper into trouble. And I want to point out that our system is unique among large agencies. We don't have another supply. Comparison with Valley Water or East Bay Mud, for example, and others is not particularly meaningful because they do have multiple sources of supply. Whether they're good sources of supply or not, that's not my business, but they do have other sources of supply. So as a planning tool, the design drought runs our system storage to 0. And that's why I call it a planning tool, because we would never run it to actually 0, because operationally we can't run out of water. So for example, if we would always end a water year with adequate supply for the next year at least, maybe 2. For example, if we were to shorten the design drought by 1 year, we would need to be mitigated by running system storage to a prudent reserve of, say, 200,000 acre feet. So we've always just got to be thinking about what's going to happen in the next year. The design drought doesn't predict a given precipitation or drought sequence. It's essentially a stress test of our ability to deliver water under extreme drought circumstances, which can in turn inform long-term mitigations. If you think back to that stretch, if it started to go 6 years, at what point would we have to actually take some really emergency actions? Like, I wouldn't say that it's top of my list, but that might be when we are just, actively activating emergency construction of a desalination plant. That, we probably, and if it got that bad, probably the whole state would be activating emergency plans like that and going exempting CEQA and everything. It would be, you got to be in a hurry to take care of the water supply. But again, it's sort of examining, it's similar to examining your personal finances, just like Allison laid out. So bad things can happen, you got to be prepared for those. So operationally, we must assume that any given year may be a drought. So in the wet year, the assumption is that the next year is the beginning of a drought. And in a dry year, the assumption is the next year is the continuation of a drought. It wouldn't be prudent to believe the next year will be wet. And people talk about what may happen. We've got some recent experiences that are pretty ominous. What happened in Australia in the late 90s and through 2010 was a very extended drought of about 14 years. And if anybody is following, as I have been following for the last 2 years, the Colorado River is in a deep pickle. They're looking at what may turn into be a 25+ year drought. So conclusions from our past experience. The enormous consequences of running out of water required prudent planning to minimize risk. And a prudent utility's got to assume that we're going to have a worse drought than any ever experienced before. Our design drought reflects our experience and our nearly exclusive reliance on surface water diversions and carryover storage and our water rights related to MIDTID and the Raker Act. So transfers, diversification of supply, and other measures will assist in reducing the risk of draconian water rationing and shortages during a drought as severe as the design drought. But we also need to know no one's going to step in to help us in those circumstances. We're on our own. That's the way our system works. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, we do have some. Okay, Director Snyder, followed by Director Zichterman.
Thank you. On page or slide 39, the last bullet point, when it says that SFPUC is unique among large districts, it is my understanding that of the 26-member BAWSCA agencies, 10 of us are 100% supportive or reliant on SFPUC. The other 16 do have other water sources or are working on other sources. My question to the other 9 of you, Millbrae being one of the 10, is to me that puts our 10 agencies more at risk. We don't have an alternative water supply. BAWSCA is designed to only look at the Hetch Hetchy water, not the 10 of us who might be at risk. I will go back to my agency and say, maybe it's time for us to have our own meetings and talk about what the 10 of us should do. We are, if I am incorrect, please correct me, we are at greater risk from a bad drought year than the other agencies that have an alternative supply. That's number one. I've worked in the environmental field over 40 years. I understand scare tactics, and a little bit of this makes me feel a little bit of a scare tactic on this. I understand the droughts. I've lived through all of them, and I have friends and family in Australia who've lived through those. But one of the problems that we have with BAWSCA is that we're hearing SFPUC's decisions in detail, and then we've got a lot of representatives from the other side, and we don't get to listen to them in detail. So I'm going to make the ask again, that the people that see another side of this get an opportunity to come to us and explain in the same level of detail, because all of this work means increased rates to our customers on that. So I appreciate what you said, Mr. Ritchie, but I also know that SFPUC is working with a number of other BAWSCA agencies, and I don't know how that fits in either. So I'm a little resentful of scare tactics. Thank you.
Very good, thank you very much. Director Zichterman.
Just quickly, Steve, thank you for a really good operational presentation on a reality check. I want to thank you for that. It is put in a way that I haven't heard before. It's got good perspective, and I just really appreciate that. I think the message to take away for us all is SFPUC isn't going to provide all of our water all of the time under all circumstances. And we've got to do more locally, we've got to do more ourselves, and maybe collectively among some of us to do local alternative supplies and work on developing them. So thank you, Steve, that was wonderful.
So, Mr. Ritchie, do you have any comments from what you just heard so far?
From what I've heard so far, just a couple of things. We take our responsibility to all of the customers seriously, whether it's 100% of the supply or 50% of the supply. We want to make sure that all of that supply, as it can be reduced, collectively during droughts to some extent, we take that very seriously, which is why we do this. I will say, scare tactics, actually in 2014, I admitted out loud to many people I was scared because we were starting to look into a very deep drought, so I was scared. And your question about those joint projects, those projects done with other parties are actually regional projects. The parties there, it's not being done for them, it's being done with them. They're participants in it, but the projects that we're doing with them are for the benefit of all of the customers.
Very good, thank you. Director Showalter.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for asking me to move. That was really smart. I don't know why I didn't think of that. I'm going to ask you to go back, though, and re-explain a couple things.
Sure.
This came at us pretty fast. We didn't get it beforehand. And I would also say that it's not in color on what we can see. And
The color makes a huge difference.
the color makes a huge difference. So first of all, where do we get this presentation if we want to study it ourselves with the color? Are you going to send it to us?
Well, we've sent it to BAWSCA so they can distribute it to all of you.
Okay, good. That's great. All right, now,
It's on the website.
it's on the website.
Yeah, it's
Good to know. Okay,
under meeting materials for tonight's meeting,
okay.
the slideshow.
Because
is
it
there.
wasn't part of the pack.
No, the slides are always posted with the agenda packet, usually the same night.
Great,
So it's
okay.
there.
Okay, so I will go back and refer to those over time. But I wanted to ask you again about this water bank. I mean, I've worked in water a long time too, right? But I started as a geohydrologist, so I don't usually think necessarily of surface water. That's water that hasn't percolated yet, right?
Right.
But anyway, and a water bank, in my parlance, is typically a groundwater bank. But that's not what you're talking about at all. You're basically saying that the reservoir of San Pedro functions as SFPUC's water bank, right?
Yeah, Don Pedro has 2.2 million acre feet of capacity. Out of that, 570,000 acre feet, because we paid for 51.7%, is what we call the water bank. It is not water that we can put there and then take out. It's paper water. It's an accounting principle.
So we wheel water from it.
Well, yeah, thank you. Basically, it's, I don't know if I'd say wheel water, but basically the districts will use that water in lieu of taking river water. So that's how it works, and then debit the water bank
Okay,
account.
okay, yeah. I'd call that wheel water, but yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, all right, so then you mentioned the storage in the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir itself.
Yes.
And Cherry Reservoir.
Yeah.
And that's where I got a little lost in your presentation, because you talked about, you talked about, how the Don Pedro, in drought years, the Don Pedro Reservoir, is used as a water bank. A lot of water comes out of that. But then I thought you made a statement of something like, but in the Hetch Hetchy system above, we try and have water for a couple of years. Did you say that, or?
Well, again, the water bank is this account where we can wheel water. We will always, or almost always, there are circumstances where we wouldn't, we would prefer that they take their water out of the water bank so that we can keep all of our wet water, the water we actually have in our reservoirs, we can keep in our reservoirs or deliver to our customers. But once that water bank is empty, then we have to release all the water that we owe to them downstream, and we don't have any other alternative but to give them the water that is coming into or is already in our reservoirs.
So say in 2014, which was a horrible year.
Right.
It was scary. It was scary to anybody who had any sense about water in California. I mean, it was just very, very scary. How much water was in Hetch Hetchy Reservoir? I remember going and visiting, and it was a little like.
Oh, 2014, it was probably 100% full.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and when I say full, it's full on July 1st. Here, if you're looking at this slide, you can see that in 2014, the number for the combined storage is just above 600,000 acre feet. That's because we've already started to draw down Cherry and Eleanor. We will draw them down before we start to draw down Hetch Hetchy Reservoir, because we're just using them for power generation. That's an ancillary effect. The supply for our customers is the primary factor in our storage upcountry.
Okay, all right.
So,
And the
so in
dead pull it's
2014, it was full
Okay,
on July 1st.
but on,
Hetchy was, yeah.
but on October 31st, what was it?
October 30, well, actually what happens every year, and this is always funny when I hear it on the radio, it's like, oh yeah, it was full on July 1st, but it's sinking like a rock
Well,
now.
right.
Well, it does every year,
And you expect
because
that to
that's, we're
happen.
delivering that to customers. That's where it's going then.
Well, that's what I'm trying to
Right,
understand is
and
sort of
then,
the over.
that's why you have this rising leg starting, actually in January or around then, it's starting to fill back up. So that's where these peaks are all about July 1st.
Okay, all right, thank you, that's very helpful.
Very
All right,
good.
then a couple more questions I think we want to answer with this process is, I think we want to answer the question of, what are we using this information for? Clearly, we're using the information for our urban water management plans. That's a regulatory requirement. I think that's a perfectly legitimate thing to use this for. It's great, it's what it's for. But what else are we using it for? And I think that that's something we need to understand, because we get asked that question by our constituents on a regular basis. And sometimes people jump to the conclusion that if we are being too conservative, then we are planning projects that we don't need, and we're building projects that we don't need, and we're spending money that we don't need to spend. So the thing that I don't think is necessarily connected here, and I'd really like to have it made clear, is is this information from the urban water management plan what we use to size local projects, and essentially we make that decision based on this information? I don't think that's true. I think we make the decisions on specific projects based on those projects and other information about utilization. So that's kind of what I would like to better understand is what's this information used for, and what information do we use to decide that we need another project and how the cost is going to be distributed. And then the other thing, while I'm talking, I'll be quiet after this, is I would like to have, in the not too distant future, kind of a bullet point list of maybe 3 or 5 things that I could use to share with my constituents. And I think it would be really good if we all kind of had a similar message. So that's something I hope we can develop. I just think it would be really useful to be able to explain this succinctly and clearly. And I know, as somebody who's worked in this business for a long time, I'm terrible at that. I really need help. I can go on and on for an hour and a half about something, but everybody's eyes glaze over. I need, a 30-second elevator speech. So that's out of this. So
Yeah.
thank you.
If I may answer one of the questions you raised, which is one that I have to repeat over and over again, and everybody ignores the answer. So I'll say it again here. The origin of the Urban Water Management Planning Act was making sure that the water agency was aware of all planned developments and could say, yes, we have a plan if all those planned developments get built. Everybody knows they won't all get built, but frankly, East Bay Mud was the one who pushed on this because they got surprised by local jurisdictions saying, okay, we've approved this project, so give them the water now. And East Bay Mud said, what project? So they were the ones who pushed getting that is the absolute core of the Urban Water Management Planning Act.
That's true. I remember that happening as well. And it's like the most development that you could possibly have.
Right.
Do we have water for it? That's
Right.
the question we're answering
That
with
is
the
the
urban water
primary
management.
question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Stone, followed by Director Duncan. Greer Stone, yes.
Thank you, Chair, and first appreciation to the Chair for agendizing this discussion, and I appreciate you, Mr. Ritchie, for the presentation. It's been really, really helpful. My first question, I want to follow up with Director Showalter's kind of question there about the design drought. How is it used? Is it just a kind of a theoretical planning document? Is it, I would imagine when SFPUC is considering alternative water supplies and investments, that the design drought is a piece of that when we're looking at, do we need increased infrastructure? I know, for example, City of Palo Alto, we spent over about $500,000 several years ago because of the design drought assumptions within our own kind of water projections, and we ended up not needing to do that investment, and constituents were pretty upset about what they viewed as a waste of taxpayer money to be spent on that study. So could you answer the question that Director Showalter posed?
Yeah, and then the answer is it's used in many circumstances. We use it partly as a gauge for when we would need to start to trigger different levels of conservation in the system, or in extreme, not just voluntary conservation, but actual rationing in the system. So its first real major use outside of surviving the 87 through 92 drought was in the Water System Improvement Program Programmatic Environmental Impact Report, which is this slate of 85 projects that cost ultimately $4.8 billion over time, and largely aimed at seismic strengthening of the system. But one of the questions was, well, what is our water supply? How can it live through that? And so the design drought was used in that to come up with a way to assess how much rationing it was believed that the system needed to be able to withstand. And so that's where, if you see our level of service, and something we talk about a fair amount, is the surviving a long-term drought with no more than 20% rationing. And that was the level that was used in that analysis as, okay, can we make it through this period of time with no more than 20% rationing? And at that time, with the levels of demand that were there, but also the levels of in-stream flow requirements that were there, that was what the analysis showed. It took a certain amount of projects, 3 of which were in the WSIP, to provide that additional supply to make sure that we could make it through the 8.5-year drought with no more than 20% rationing. It was an exercise to do that, and the projects that had been developed with the Regional Groundwater Storage and Recovery Project, the Alameda Creek Recapture Project, and let's see, I think, let's see, was Calaveras a water supply project or a seismic project? I can't remember, but they were classified as, what they could deliver to help make sure that that was the standard we can meet. But that was done in the analysis for that slew of projects at that time on a programmatic level to say, okay, can we do that? Obviously, that was done in 2008. Here we are now in 2026, and the biggest thing that has been confronting us since then is the Bay Delta Water Quality Control Plan, and that would call for more water to be left in the Tuolumne River, and we've been, going back and forth on that now since the last iteration was released in 2016. So we've been at that for a decade now, trying to work our way through what we think of as the Healthy Rivers and Landscapes as a good alternative for that. But at the same time, the rest of the world's not waiting for the State Water Board to finish that. So we've had to do urban water management plans and say, okay, well, how do you deal with the drought from that? And what are the demands that you use? So that's why we've had to struggle around each year as to exactly how we portray that analysis. I would not call it in the urban water management plan a definitive analysis, because I'm still hopeful that we're actually going to get to a result with the State Water Board that we can all start to work on, as opposed to guessing one way or the other what they're going to do.
Thank you. So,
Yep. You good?
a few more.
Okay, yeah.
But
You
so,
have the floor.
safe to say, as the SFPUC continues to plan alternative water supplies in the future and potentially additional storage, the design drought plays a significant role in that, is one of the factors.
Yeah, it does, and as Director Showalter noted, there's a lot of other things you take into account. We started our alternative water supply plan looking at all the things that were reasonably on the horizon that we might do, and one by one, those have kind of dropped by the boards. But at the same time, we've now seen our demands drop, and so we actually have, on the regional level, only one project that is left that we're looking at right now, which is the Peninsula Pure Water Project.
If the SFPUC were to replace the design drought with the drought of record, or the 87 to 92 drought, do you know how that would impact rationing, projected rationing, water rates? I mean, like, assuming the Bay Delta plan is in effect, have you done that analysis of what alternative drought modeling would look like on our ratepayers?
We do modeling all the time on different alternatives and how they might play out. We don't publish all those because we're just looking at different alternatives and responding to questions from the State Water Board when we want to talk about different alternatives and demonstrate how they work or don't work in that concept. I would say just going with the design, the 87 through 92, very frankly, that would fly in the face of how we were operating at the end of the 87 through 92 drought, which was actually to think additional 2 years. And we actually went to court on that issue and actually ultimately settled with the irrigation districts who said, we think you're being too conservative. And we said, no, we're not. And we settled, and we ended up going a good place together.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the your stated reasoning for the drought of record plus the 2 years. Although the 2 years is not it's not a continuation of those drought conditions. It's actually the 2 years from the 1976 and 77, which were
yeah.
much more severe, correct?
Well, 87 through 88 were pretty severe too, so it's how you mix them together. There was actually 1 year in the middle that turned out to be kind of a higher year, but the election was back using the thinking that I described. It doesn't pay to assume it's going to be a good year. It pays to actually worry that it's going to be a bad year and that you have to deal with that because you're ready to do something instead of assuming it's a good year, and then that doesn't happen, and you've lost a year of preparedness.
And do you know, have you done kind of a probability analysis on the design drought actually occurring?
No, we think the probability analysis, I tried to address that, frankly, in answer to one of the questions that, in the future, it's a crapshoot. It's a flip of a coin as to whether the year is going to be dry or wet in the following year. When you think about it, all of the, Dave, what's your last name? Warner. Dave Warner sent a letter that said, you're flying in the face of all the data that are available. Those aren't data. Those are models that were actually not even run for a design drought purpose. That come up with the 8,000 year period or whatever. When we actually talk about what we're going to do, that's a different matter. So all probability analysis really rely on history. They don't really rely on any data in the future. And that's the problem we all have, is we can't predict the future. Assuming it's going to be like the past is not a good idea.
And looking back on the past, the only data that we have, I know there's been, well, I think your long-term vulnerability assessment kind of showed 26,000 years of data.
Made up data.
Sorry?
Made up data.
Okay, well, then the 1,100 years of the Tuolumne watershed tree ring data found no drought that matches the severity of the design drought, correct? And
that's fine.
Okay. And Chair, I've been going for a while. I have a kind of request of the board and some comments. Should I hold off until later?
No, you have the floor. Go ahead, finish.
Okay. And also, I think it would be nice before we finalize the item, or at least the discussion. I know Mr. Ritchie mentioned one of our guests, and it'd be nice. I know we have several, I would say, kind of experts maybe on the other side of this debate. Director Schneider's point to be able to hear from. I know it won't be the same as being able to hold the floor and respond to our questions, but okay, then. So my request, assuming then this is appropriate for this item, would be a motion to direct the BAWSCA CEO to send a letter on behalf of BAWSCA to the SFPUC formally requesting that they update their design drought model to include a formal risk assessment and to consider replacing the design drought with the 1987 to 1992 drought of record. And if there's a second to the motion, assuming this is appropriate, I can speak to it.
Okay. Yeah, we have 2 agendas there, yeah. So, at this point, legal, we have to, this will have to be agendized, correct?
The agenda is not clear that there would be any board action on this item, so I think we'd need to agendize that for a later meeting where the public would be made aware that an action could be taken.
Well, then could I request that we would re-agendize this as an action item? And I really appreciated Director Schneider's point that we, at that meeting, invite an expert from, who would be able to offer an alternative perspective.
I can do miracles, but I cannot do the impossible, okay? So that's what I could do so far. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we could do that.
Okay,
For the
great.
future, yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, Director Duncan, followed by Director Mellinger.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Ritchie, thank you for your presentation. It's really informative. I have two questions, and the first one may be a little bit foolish or stupid, but
No
the
stupid
water
questions.
bank, it seems like a very nebulous issue, and I think a lot of us struggle with that. But when I look at it, what I see the need for the water bank is the water that flows into Hetchy, Cherry, and Eleanor is not necessarily San Francisco's. It's the district's first.
Yeah,
And
by right, yeah.
by rights. And in a dry year, that's much more of that flows into those reservoirs belongs to the district. So what we use the water bank for is to trade that water for having it up available in Hetchy so we can get it to the suburban customers in San Francisco. Is that the correct way to think?
That's a good way to think about it, yeah.
Okay, so my second question is, if we change the design drought and we get it wrong, and we get a couple more years of those below average years, you mentioned, there would be maybe emergency desal plant construction. Isn't there anything else we can do? Can we do water transfers? Is there any other way to get more water? What can we do to bring more water in if we run out?
The other thing would be to drive around the Central Valley with a truckload of cash, looking for farmers to buy out and use their
Go to
water,
Modesto.
if they have it. I'm not joking. That's kind of the level it would get to.
Thank you.
Very good. Director Mellinger, followed by Director Pierce.
Thank you very much. And I have a few questions. The first of all, second what Director Showalter said about these graphs and having them in color, something that would be helpful as this is shared with BAWSCA, because these are very informative but also complicated, is a user manual on those graphs. Because the key does not quite fully convey everything that's on there.
Right.
So a paragraph or two on that with the graphs would be helpful. So the Colorado River got mentioned, and obviously that drought has been severe and long-lasting, and one of the issues with the Colorado River is that it is consistently being used for purposes that might be considered unwise. Nestle bottling plants drawing from their watershed, water-intensive agriculture. And so one of my questions was, in the event of a truly catastrophic drought, which is what we're describing, the scenario of driving around the Central Valley with truckloads of cash, obviously, there is quite a lot of water-intensive agriculture in the state of California. Would there be any hope for some sort of, regulatory action or something legislative fix at Sacramento to essentially address that concern in the event of a drought, to try and shift water from almonds to people? I understand that water rights in the state are a very complicated thing. Is that even possible?
That is possible. That is one of the things that people have raised, and people have said, well, don't worry, Sacramento will come to our aid. Remember, Sacramento, first and foremost, is going to take care of the State Water Project and the Central Valley Project. Those are the big projects. And they're both, a significant component is agriculture. But would there be emergency legislation to redirect water, basically suspend water rights, suspended the whole system of water rights, and just by fiat say, this is where the water has to go? that is a possibility. That's beyond my pay grade, believe me.
Would they do it is an entirely different question that is also beyond the ability of my crystal ball to forecast.
But it is technically possible.
Okay. That was, given the complexity around water rights, I wasn't even sure if it was.
Well, there would be a lot of litigation on it, and people weighing in from all over the world.
Understood. Could we get the slide that shows how the relationship between the water that, essentially how the water gets into the Don Pedro, and this was one of the, 23, thank you, yes, 23. So, yeah, no, obviously a complicated system,
Yeah.
but
We were talking, we need to make that blue line that comes down from Hetchy, that needs to actually get a squiggle in it, because that's the Tuolumne River that is carrying all that water into Don Pedro. Looks like a pipeline, but it's really the river.
I see. Yeah, so essentially, based on this, the agricultural uses are primarily downstream of Don Pedro, is that correct?
Yeah, the irrigation districts, Modesto and Turlock, one is on each side of the river, and they actually divert their water at LaGrange Dam, which is just downstream from Don Pedro, and it goes into a operating reservoir, one on each side of the river, that feeds the farmers and a couple of the cities in their service areas.
I see. All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate the presentation. Oh, actually, I did have one other question. I'm sorry, Chair's indulgence. We did.
This is gonna cost you, okay?
We'll discuss after. You mentioned the risk. Obviously, the risk of not having enough water in the case of a severe drought is very bad. No one wants to be, where Johannesburg was a few years ago.
Right.
Right. The question I have, and this is in light of the unexpected SFPUC rate increase this past fiscal year, is there is a corresponding risk of overbuilding infrastructure, and combined with demand hardening. I've heard it somewhat dramatically termed a death spiral, but essentially declining demand forcing increased rates to manage debt service and fixed capital costs, leading to further decreased demand, leading to further increased rates, et cetera, et cetera. Can you speak a little bit about that risk and how SFPUC is trying to tack the middle path between those two?
Sure. One of the things we talked about is previously in response to questions from this board and our board is, gee, if we have to implement the Bay Delta plan, what would we do? What do we have to build? What's got to be done? And so that was the primary driver of doing an alternative water supply plan, was to look at all the reasonable possibilities that could be done for water supply. As I mentioned previously, all of those for different each one for a different reason has fallen by the board. Some of them because there was less demand available. But some were just the projects didn't pencil out or some other things. So that we only have one project left, which is a purified water project that would develop 6 million gallons per day. And we're continuing with the planning of that because we think that is going to be a promising step in our future for all of us. When things we can't even imagine now are happening, we're going to be looking at purified water or treated wastewater for drinking water purposes a lot. So net effect of all this was that in the capital plan that was adopted this year by the PUC, both the 2-year plan and the 10-year plan, the amount of water supply projects was like 3%. 97% was about reliability of the system, mostly in the sense of rebuilding infrastructure. Our single biggest line item in our plan, both combined city and regional, is our main replacement in San Francisco. The mains in San Francisco are all older than many of your mains, and we've got to replace those, and we've never spent enough money on that, so that's a big deal for us, is main replacement in San Francisco. We have 3 dams in the Bay Area that all have shortcomings, and based on Oroville from a few years ago, we're under increased scrutiny there. So it's about, I'm estimating that those 3 dams together to rejuvenate them is going to cost us about $2 billion. And then there's on and on, replacement of transmission mains, upgrading water treatment plants, yes, the Millbrae Operations Center. All of these things go to the resilience of the system in the future that have nothing to do really with water supply per se.
All right, thank you very much, and I will ask the chair to be lenient with me.
We'll talk later. Okay, thank you. Director Pierce, followed by Director Bro.
So I have a question, Steve, and then I have a comment. So what would you say drives the rate increases aside from a specific design drought approach? Why are the rates going up?
Why are the rates going up? Well, this past year was an interesting year. We always project at the beginning of the year what the wholesale rate's going to be, but that's all based on what we hear from the customers as to how much water they think they're going to use. And in this year, the customers use less. And so we had to end up with an increase going forward because there was a shortfall in the amount of revenue we were going to collect. It wasn't out of the ordinary by any means. This year turned out to be just as many others, and I think some people raised a scare tactic flag early in the year, saying, "Oh my God, it says 7% now. It said 1% before." Well, that number still changed even more because nobody knew how much water was actually going to be used. So that's when the number came out, and I don't even recall what the exact rate increase was this year. But the rate increases for the wholesale customer area, are on a fairly steady increase, which is the cost of living as much as anything else. Maybe a little bit more because of the dams, for example. They push it up a little bit. But none of these individual projects you can say is like, that project is driving a huge rate increase. That's not the case.
So what I have experienced in my time on BAWSCA is that in 2002, Redwood City gets all of its water from the Hetch Hetchy system. And so I would prefer that you be conservative because I have no other option. In 2002, our Public Works Director looked at how much water we were using, and everybody's willing to sell it to you when there's lots of water. So it didn't matter that we were over our supply assurance. And we looked at that, and we looked at the amount of building and housing we were going to do and were required to do, and we said, we have got a serious problem. And so we invested as a city. BAWSCA didn't pay for it. Redwood City paid for it. We got grants for it. And it took us a very long time and a lot of public meetings. And we built a recycled water program, and we partner with other people. And I think that's sort of the genesis of the Pure Water project. But and it offsets, so it's landscapes, it's industrial and that stuff. It's not used in homes. And so it was an effort that our city undertook because we were facing an issue. And so we thought, you never know what's going to happen. BAWSCA then eventually did the first strategic plan, looking at what other alternatives could be done. And I was very keen on it, and I thought, oh, we're going to have all these great projects. Well, after more research, which is what BAWSCA and the SFPUC both do really well, they said, it's not an everyday source that people need. It's really during droughts. So all of those fabulous projects that I was very excited about were no longer needed. So those expenditures were not made. And so I think over time, what I've seen is that you plan for the worst, and then you build for what you need, and you try to be creative. And we at BAWSCA tried to do a water transfer, and it was a nightmare. And so anybody who says that's a really good way to move forward, I would say go and look back in all the data, because it was not. And no one wants to give you water then. So I guess my question would be, moving forward, I think it would be very helpful if there's a real sensitivity about rates to give us, to help us be proactive about what will help us save money for our customers in a way that doesn't shoot us in the foot.
We were looking at demands yesterday, and Redwood City has a comfortable cushion now below the supply assurance.
And we're building a lot.
All right, well, thank you, Director Pierce. I am so familiar with what she said in Redwood City, it's not even funny. I was there. So, Director Brown.
Thank you, sir. So, Steve, having spent 4 decades in the water business, working for a wholesale agency down south, and 25 years up here managing 2 small retail agencies, I'm so glad I never had your job. I mean, you are at a point where you have a very strong contractual requirement to provide us with 184 MGD. You've got federal law that restricts when and how you can access the source that's 85% of your tranche of water supply. And then you come here and people, and I'm not saying that their thoughts are wrong, but then you have people that come here and that say, well, we want you to do it cheaper, we want you to build less projects, we want you to put more water downstream, and no one's taking responsibility for that, for the outcome of that. They want to put it all on you. And I think that's really what's occurring here. And of course, you are here at the successor agency to the agency that really forced the SFPUC to take on the WSIP, which primarily was based on seismic reliability at the time. So that multi-billion-dollar project was created as a result of legislation that BAWA was able to get state legislators to take on. So I wonder, and I'm really serious about this. Do you ever want to just throw up your hands and say, okay, BAWSCA, if you really want me to plan for a 6-year or 7-year drought, I will do that. But we are then going to impose or superimpose an 8-year drought on that. And if it goes beyond a 6-year drought, and you said you want us to only plan for 7, the water that's left as it goes beyond there, that's all you get. And then you have to agree to that in a water supply agreement. Because I think an arrangement like that would actually be fair. It would put the responsibility on both of us. Because I feel like right now, we're just chipping away at SFPUC and putting all the responsibility for you, and we're not taking on any of the responsibility for those actions. You don't really have to answer that if you don't want to.
Well, I would say that if that eventuality occurred, probably none of you would still be here, and I probably still wouldn't be here, and I'll be wondering, what were they doing?
All right, thank you very much. And Director Jordan, we haven't forgotten about you, okay? You're on our mind. All good? All good. Looks like me smiling. Good. All right, Director Snyder, followed by Director Nash.
Thank you, Director Stone, on that. I have a question for Director Showalter. I appreciate what you said. You know, we all go back and we read our own urban water management plan, and it's really hard to connect the criteria that comes at this level to that level. So I'm trying to see if I captured what you said correctly. And I think this would go with what Director Stone said to come back to us in the future. What are the criteria that we are looking at as BAWSCA that then gets transferred down to the member agencies that comes back as a cost on that? And then to Director Melander, your comment about how that translates into both the wholesale water rates and then the retail water rates. Did I capture that correctly? Because I couldn't, in my head, I opened up our urban management plan saying, I can't remember what those criteria are. Or was I just misunderstanding you?
No, I think that's generally right. I want to differentiate what we use this information in the urban water management plan for and how we plan specific projects. And I don't think, there's certainly an overlap, but they're not necessarily, we don't just use the urban water management plan. And I think that's a really important understanding. And yet, we have this urban water management plan, this collective one, with the design drought, and it's what we need to. It's the background that it's based on, and we need to be able to explain that relationship to our constituents, and we need to understand it ourselves. So that's what I was.
So thank you, Director
Yeah.
Showalter. So my add to Director Stone, if he's okay, is that those sets of bullet points, those criteria, let's make it clear to some of the other arguments. And I appreciate Director Anders' comment again at the Policy Committee in June saying, are we going to be paying for a brand new building to store SFPUC records when both Berkeley, Stanford, and the National Archives and the state of California also have archive bodies? So the question becomes, amongst all of the projects that are in the reliability part of the SFPUC budget, how many of them are actually really necessary? And, or would it be cheaper to buy an existing building than building a brand new building, given the immense number of unused office spaces in California on that? So it's how all the pieces fit together, and it gets complicated. But if you look back at the first time the Millbrae was not called Millbrae Operations Center, for now I'll accept that you all are calling it that, it had a wellness center for staff in it. That wellness center has now been removed. Did that only happen because I brought up concerns? What other projects are within the SFPUC 2-year and 10-year SIP that rolls every 2 years that really does not have to be done? And yeah, you could argue it's part of reliability, but is it really? Thank you.
Okay, Director Nash, followed by Director Hardy.
Thank you. I have two questions. One is, how does the local storage fit into the scene? I didn't see it on the graphs.
You mean our Bay Area reservoirs?
Yes, the Calaveras, San Antonio.
Yeah, that represents about 15% of our supply, and the operating assumption is that's going to empty out as fast, if not faster, than the upcountry supplies. So it's really a very small piece. Frankly, it's a very small piece of the pie, and the assumption is that there will be a drought down here just as bad as anything else we're seeing.
Is that in addition to, are those supplies in addition to what are on the graphs?
Yeah, if you look back at the water supply update slides, that gives the accounting of all of our reservoirs there. The reservoirs that are in the Bay Area as well as the reservoirs that are in the Tuolumne.
Correct, but what about the graphs that are, what happens if
Now,
it continues to be dry?
The graphs are really, this is all about how the Tuolumne River system works, because we're assuming that's the water that's going to be left at the end when, because the years that we were actually operating, those reservoirs were already going away as part of this. We just didn't include them on the graph because that's not connected in the operational sense that all these reservoirs are connected with water bank.
So that is not more water that is
Yeah,
available?
we didn't
You're
have,
saying that that's-
boy, we've got this extra 100,000 acre feet down there. No, that water was already going away as well.
Thank you. And then the other question I had from some comments that you made is, you mentioned the main replacement in San Francisco.
Mhm.
Is that something that's paid partially by BAWSCA members?
No,
Good. I
no,
see
that's,
that.
but
Very good.
just everybody knows, you're all paying for those in your jurisdictions.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Okay. And I assume we'll have a little bit more discussion after public comment.
Okay, so Director Hardy.
I'm going to beg everyone once again to go on a Hetch Hetchy tour. We have another one the end of September. It made such a difference. this is a good chart showing you, but when you actually see the system, it makes a big difference. And you have 2 days to pepper them. Allison's laughing because I did. Pepper them with questions, literally, and really understand and have a much better view of the entire system. Now, some of you have talked about your jurisdiction. This is your only water option. Don't think that those of us that have more than one aren't getting squeezed from both sides, because during the drought, Santa Clara was pulled back one of the most, and both entities were saying, well, you have the other one, get your water from them. The reality is, we can't make water. And I think we tend to forget that. Your idea of running around the Central Valley with cash is a reality. We know that's what happened in Mexico City when the main water broke. Didn't matter how much money you had, there was no water. There was a reality. Now, I can throw Valley Water under the bus because they're not here. He's laughing. They had, in their infinite wisdom, had let Anderson Dam go to the underworld until the feds shut it down. And we're paying for all of that. And their changes were 12%. And I made a big fuss, and now they're at 9.9%. And the comment was, calm down, Karen. They're not double digits. So this is what a lot of people are dealing with because there was not the planning. And when I say planning, Santa Clara is up to 20% of our water use is reclaimed water. We're the highest. We have worked really, really hard at this. But nobody has a crystal ball. We have to be ready to handle what we can. And I have been pushing very hard with our water treatment plant that Santa Clara and San Jose own together, and with Valley Water, to have a purified water plant so we can close the loop and reuse our water in a potable way. Yes, it's twice as expensive, but it's not as expensive as desalinization. There's some realities. That's 3 to 5 times as expensive. I've done the research. So I like the fact that we are planning. My dad was a chemical engineer also, and always said, during a drought, plan for a flood. During a flood, plan for a drought. That way you will not be caught unawares. And I think we know what we lived through. And if we have 2 droughts close back to back, even with just one good year in between, we would still be in major trouble. And I appreciate that we need to plan for this, because without the pressure on that dam, even the change in the atmosphere, the height, the altitude, we wouldn't have the water pressure, we wouldn't have the water. And I appreciate that you are thinking through this truly, so that we never get to that dire strait. Thank you.
Very good. I wonder if we're gonna make AI water. No? No, okay. I'm just asking. Director Ragsdale, please.
Thank you. Just briefly, I will second the pointing out that the tour is amazing to visualize all of this. And also, if you're not an engineer and you don't have experience with water other than using it, and you're just a regular old council member, it's handy to go on the tour more than once, because I think I finally understand the water bank tonight. Because the explanation plus the questions, it's like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. So I do second that. And then I also second the requests for anytime you can give us bullet points for our constituents either from SFPUC or from BAWSCA. It's always appreciated. Like the reasons the rates are up, 4 bullet points, super helpful. Because that's the thing people are paying a lot of attention to these days. And then I had one question. So I understand it was the 6-year drought of record plus the 2 years, and then you mentioned there was litigation to, what was that litigation?
Well, I think it was in 1994, 1995, maybe it started a little earlier than that. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission was reopening the Don Pedro license under FERC, and so they were reevaluating what the in-stream flow obligations might be, and those are the times when we in the irrigation districts don't hold hands much anymore. So we were in litigation. I don't know, I can't remember. I wasn't here at the time. I don't know who sued who, but we were in litigation over various terms of that, and one of them revolved around the design drought. So many times I have used a declaration that Anson Moran, who was the general manager of Hetch Hetchy Water and Power at that time, he was the one who was in those negotiations, and his declaration was, you know, this, you know, if you haven't lived through this, you know, you don't want to live through this. This is absolutely essential in my opinion, and nothing could change my mind on that. And eventually that litigation was settled, and we had what we now call the side agreement, which is an agreement where that was reached in 1996, where we pay the irrigation districts a certain amount of money each year, and they then provide the additional in-stream flows that were required under that modification to the FERC license. So San Francisco didn't have to give up water, it gave up money instead.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, Director Mellinger?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask for a brief recess before we hear public comment.
Okay, so since we are in the World Cup mode, there's going to be a dehydration break, please. 3 minutes.
I like the hydration break.
So I do have a speaker's card from Eileen Boken. 2 minutes, please.
Is the microphone on? Yes.
Okay, Eileen Bogan, Coalition for San Francisco Neighborhoods, speaking on my own behalf. The SFPUC's design drought was implemented 30 years ago, before climate science was more fully evolved. The PUC selected 8.5 years, even though other regional agencies mostly selected 5.5 years. A wide range of community organizations have been advocating for many years for the PUC to revisit the design drought, but that advocacy has fallen on deaf ears. Not only has the PUC failed to reevaluate the design drought, the PUC has refused to even discuss the possibility of revisiting it. The PUC also refuses to address the implications of State Water Code 73503, as well as the implications of Proposition 218 when proposing to use general obligation bonds for water infrastructure, and also the Bay Delta Plan lawsuit. Therefore, I'm strongly urging BAWSCA to pass a resolution which insists that the PUC revise its design drought. Thank you.
Thank you. John McManus.
Howdy, folks. I'm John McManus. I'm the Senior Policy Director for the Golden State Salmon Association. One of the things to consider as you discuss the design drought, and I appreciate the discussion that's occurred here and the thoughtfulness of you directors. The salmon industry has been hammered. We have been shut down basically for the last 3 years. We're out fishing this year, but it's because we got a lot of water in 2023 and 2024. We get a lot of water, it overwhelms the dams, the reservoirs that have killed off the salmon. In the Tuolumne River, we've lost 99% of the historic salmon runs that were in that river. Because of this, we would encourage the call to revisit the design drought, for some due diligence to occur. With Mr. Ritchie, you hear a lot about assumptions. You hear a lot about making decisions that are considered prudent. I appreciate the job of you directors is to engage in prudent decision-making. You have to. All we're asking for is a little bit of compromise and a little bit of balance. We don't believe that we have to lose California's natural resources in order to run the Tuolumne River the way it's currently run. In a nutshell, what's happening in the Tuolumne is juvenile salmon, those that survive the egg incubation period, don't swim to the ocean in the spring, they get flushed out. But the way the Tuolumne is currently run, they're not getting flushed out in many years, and that's why we're losing salmon there. Our industry needs them. We hope you would consider this as you take up the discussion of the design drought. And I don't know about anybody else in here, but when I hear about a 6-year drought and then for some reason we add another 2.5 years, why don't we add another 20 years? I mean, what is the connection here? It seems a little arbitrary. And if it's not, let's see the science. Let's have a debate. Let's have a discussion. And I think that was the call of Director Stone, which I support. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Judith Kirk. Followed by Dave Warner.
I'm Judith Kirk from Redwood City, a ratepayer for water since 1964. I'm angry with the SFPUC for being stodgy. To be seen as not stodgy in my book means that an entity such as the SFPUC constantly stays current with science and research facts on which its job depends. And the facts say that the design drought is wrong. The people in charge of our water system know that the current design drought is not only fallible, it's wrong, and they won't update it. We know that it is environmentally extremely harmful. It leads to all of us paying unnecessarily high water rates for developing unneeded alternative water supplies. However, I have hope, a feeling that perhaps BAWSCA has indeed begun to understand the trade-offs between developing those alternative water supplies versus wisely reducing the fictional severity of the current design drought that has remained unchanged and wrong for too long. It's my hope that BAWSCA is beginning to understand what is at stake here, and that it can work to inform the SFPUC that hoarding water in storage during dry years when rivers need it most, among other practices, is wrong, and that in doing so harms endangered species and ecosystems when there's really no cost to us to protect them. I find it surprising that BAWSCA won't include the Sierra Club, Salmon Association, Yosemite Rivers Alliance, and others in their workshops. Such groups would help lead BAWSCA to a place of leadership in educating the SFPUC. Leaders seek new information and welcome it, qualities of the leadership role BAWSCA could play with the SFPUC. We very much need BAWSCA's leadership to junk the current design drought, to include all players in these absolutely critical and crucial issues, and to lead the SFPUC to become not stodgy and not stubborn and give us a fact and research-based drought standard. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Warner, followed by Patty Regier.
Thank you. I'm Dave Warner. Thank you for your service. Most of the time I'm pleased that we have Mr. Ritchie serving the SFPUC and us, but tonight his behavior is not acceptable, nor was General Manager Herrera's response to Greer Stone. In his letter to Mr. Stone, he said, "A return period has no relevance to the need to plan for a drought worse than any we have experienced." I expect more from our public servants, particularly those overseeing a water supply for 2.7 million people. Best practices require that we understand the risk associated with our drought models and the cost of mitigating that risk. Otherwise, we can't make good, cost-effective decisions. Understanding risk and the cost of mitigating that risk is core to decision-making. Nowhere has Mr. Ritchie given you any risk data nor cost data for mitigating that risk. Instead, he makes alarmist statements and presents a chart that would cause alarm for anyone. But there is no data behind it. He could have chosen from a wealth of data from the SFPUC's own long-term vulnerability assessment, scientifically robust research developed by an impressive list of atmospheric scientists led by the University of Massachusetts Amherst. He could have said that from 26,000 years of carefully developed data, scientists found no drought close to the severity of the design drought. No drought. We expect our institutions to be straight with us. Mr. Ritchie's presentation was anything but. As was mentioned by another person, his alarmist chart was not accurate, and I disagree with his comment about local storage. You had 800,000 acre-feet of water available at the low point of the water bank. That chart did not show 800,000 feet. 800,000 acre-feet would last 3 years. Your chart only showed 2. Please get with Mac Moses and get it correct and give us correct data. If you're going to present data like that, make sure it's right. Our water rates are already ridiculously high. Let's get a foundational item straight. What is the risk of our return period of the design drought? And if we modestly reduce its severity, perhaps by using the example in my letter, would we free up supply to mitigate the need for investing alternatives? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Patty Regier, followed by Spreck Rosecrans.
Hi, I want to thank you. I've been attending meetings. I went in 2016. I've been going to the state board for the Delta Plan and listening to farmers. I was listening to fishermen. I was listening to everybody, and I know how important water is and how political it is and how dangerous it is to make the wrong decision. And I can understand people saying we need to conserve water, we need to prepare for a drought, because heaven forbid if you guys want to be the ones that say let's open up the revision and revise the plan and find out that we don't need to conserve water as much. And there's a difference between conserving water and hoarding water. I, as a taxpayer, really resent the fact that I've been conserving water and I've been a good citizen and a good environmentalist and doing stuff, and my rates are going up, and I hear that one of the reasons why my rates are going up is because we're consuming less water. And I think that it's important for you all to realize that it's important that we don't run out of water, but it's also important to make a plan. And we've seen the last years how fear has been changing the government and making plans based on fear. And the fear could be, if we revisit revisit the design drought plan and revisit it, and you have other experts coming in, you can all make a good decision on the next going forward based on facts, based on environmental facts, and based on fear, not based on fear, but really have everybody come to the table and say, what are we going to do? Because as it is, I hear Palo Alto spent a lot of money on their own study, Redwood City did all this other stuff. And if everyone had a good plan and a revision plan, not based on something that was based in 1994, I think that's when it was last done, is that right? 1994 when the...
It was done in 1994.
Right, 1994. I think we need to revisit it, and I think we need to get more people on board on making the plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Spreck Rosecrans, followed by Doug Jacuzzi.
Thank you. I'm Spreck Rosecrans with Restore Hetch Hetchy. First, I want to say that the work that Steve and Allison and others do is absolutely essential, and we all want to make sure we get through a drought, water comes through our taps, and so forth. And I think we all respect the work that they do and the work that you guys do as directors. That said, nobody does it that way. I've worked with water planning models since 1989 when I was the first person outside of the Department of Water Resources to get their DWRSIM model. If anybody remembers the language Fortran, that was what they did back in those days. But I worked with that, worked on the Colorado River with the CVP and a lot of local districts, and extensively with yours. And Steve, I think, justified this by the design drought by saying, well, we have a unique system. We get all our water from the Tuolumne River. We have junior water rights and very little water in the driest years. And so that takes us into doing something like the design drought. I think that's overly conservative. My suggestion is always to listen to the environmental community, whether it's me or these other folks who have been speaking. However, what I also suggest is bring in some outside experts. Have a panel, take a day, bring in Jay Lund from UC Davis, bring in Tim Quinn if he's still doing this kind of stuff, and explain the system. Take a look at what some of these options are. Don't just go after this blind design drought, and open up to see what the rest of the world is doing when they model reliability in their water systems. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug Jacuzzi, followed by Mark Shahanian.
Good evening. Thank you all for your service, and thank you, Steve and Allison, for your presentations. I'll agree with the folks here that recommended the Hetch Hetchy tour. I had the honor and privilege to take that tour just 2 weeks ago, and if you think this was a good presentation here with a lot of information, this is the presentation light compared to what you're going to get in 2 days of that Hetch Hetchy tour. Highly recommend that and appreciate the information that I received from you. That doesn't mean that we have to agree on everything. But before I go in, I have to back up for a second. Full disclosure, I am the chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee of the PUC. And I am not representing that board, that committee here tonight. I'm representing my own organization, which is Westside Water Resources, and myself. I'm a ratepayer and a citizen of San Francisco. I'd like us all to quickly just recall the name of the organization, the board that's sitting here in this room tonight. The word conservation is in that title. And in the charts and figures that we've heard tonight, we didn't really discuss how much a great job that not only this SFPUC is doing, but our society as a whole, our stormwater management, our focus on conservation and daily use at the residential level, even at the mega agricultural level. Over the years, and particularly in the last 10 to 20 years, our abilities to conserve water have grown immensely. I had this moment of sparring with Steve when I'm on the Hetch Hetchy tour, talk about conservation. We have problems with stormwater, and we're making, as a society, great progress is on managing stormwater. In my last moments here, I just want to give a few facts on our sparring. The west side watershed of San Francisco has 4.01 billion gallons of water. They get flushed out to the ocean. Stormwater get flushed out to the ocean each year. That is enough water
Thank you.
to supply San Jose 3 times
Thank
over
you.
what San Francisco sells to San Jose. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Shahanian, followed by Mark Gonzalez.
Hi, my name is Mark Shahanian. I'm here on behalf of the Sierra Club tonight. Sierra Club is very concerned about the Tuolumne, as we have been, of course, for 110 years or so. And in context, I do want to pick up on what Mr. Jacuzzi was saying. The cities here have done a great job of conserving water. That is the source of water that you found. And your water demands collectively with San Francisco are about 50,000 acre feet lower per year now than they were when that drought was put up, or the drought happened that was put up. So it's not really relevant numbers anymore, because over the course of 6 years, there would be about 300,000 acre feet less used in that system. We are concerned in the Sierra Club about how things are going with the SFPUC. Just to play back a few things that were said, the SFPUC does not know the likelihood of the demand of the design drought. The SFPUC does not know exactly the rate increase its wholesale customers paid last year. That's surprising. That's an example of the sort of posture they have had toward both the environment and their customers. Questions I would make sure and ask if I was on this board: what is the actual risk of the design drought? That's a really important question, since all of this is framed in terms of risk mitigation. What is the actual risk? What is the cost of covering for that risk? Costs are what matters here. What is the cost? What is the cost to the environment? Yes. And what is the cost to your ratepayers? Finally, Steve says they do a lot of modeling. Can they show you the stochastic models that mesh drought projections with today's demand and what could happen in terms of reduction in demand in a real drought scenario? Haven't seen those. That would be really interesting to see. Thank you for all your time. It's great
Thank
to
you.
see you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Mark Gonzalez, followed by Christina Bertea.
Hello, I'm Mark Gonzalez. I do not live in the BAWSCA district. I actually traveled from Sonoma to get my 2 minutes in. It's because I care about the health of the California rivers. My history in California goes a long way. My grandfather, generations ago, came to California with Juniper Serra and was the first Spaniard to marry a Native American. Her name was Maria. Her native name was lost to history. His name is Manuel Butron, now buried in the Carmel Mission. Just think about the health of the rivers at that time, free-flowing and full of salmon, supporting many indigenous families and tribes. Current communities are being denied this opportunity. From local fishermen to the ocean salmon fishermen, the rivers connect us to the ocean. I have been involved with the Yosemite River Alliance for many years, guiding canoe trips on the lower Tuolumne River. Many participants come from the Bay Area and local river lovers. We plan our trips during high salmon run times, the first 2 weekends of November. Come join us this fall. How many of you seen the Tuolumne River that we're all talking about? We often see salmon, and some years we had fish bumping into our boats, much to the delight of children paddling with us. Other years, low water years, I point out a splash. That might be a salmon. The low water years are a false assumption of SFPUC PUD based on their design drought model, only letting 100 CFS versus 350 CFS, which is necessary to keep the water cool and deter bass that like slow moving and warmer water. At the time of low water years, San Francisco, your supplier of water, had a 3 or 4 year supply of water. Listening to the news, most people thought we were almost out of water. I mean, I said it was really poor communication. Others can verify that information. The Bay Delta Water Quality Control Plan keeps both the river healthy and the beneficial uses active.
Thank you. Thank you. Christina Bertea?
I am here today to ask BAWSCA to take unified action and request that the SFPUC revise their 30-year-old antiquated design drought. It would be best harmonized with a more moderate and responsible and reasonable drought of record used by other Bay Area water agencies. The current design drought is causing great ecological harm to the Delta and to endangered species, and my understanding is it's likely to occur maybe in 8,000 years to 70,000 years, not a high probability. Much has changed in the last 30 years. For one thing, the demand is much less. But more importantly, science about the water cycle and how rain forms has matured. We no longer need to feel at the effect of climate and drought. While our actions have unraveled what was once a healthy water cycle in California, we now know how to restore it, working in partnership with nature. Perhaps we should focus on that repair, not on preparing for disaster. There's a groundswell happening to rehydrate California. This could make future droughts less probable. We can restore wetlands, plant forests, recharge groundwater, support a widespread transition to regenerative agriculture, which makes the soil able to infiltrate water and recharge groundwater. We know that the way humans engage with land determines climate. Plants transpiring water vapor and releasing the precipitation nuclei that's necessary for creating raindrops, moisture evaporating from soils and bodies of water are nature's way of creating rain. If we commit to beneficial land use, we can make severe droughts much less likely. Perhaps some of the huge amount of money that's being discussed to create alternate water sources could instead be directed to restoring the primary water source, the water cycle, rather than hoarding more water.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the speakers. We'll move on to public comments on items not on the agenda. And I know I do have a speaker's card from Eileen Boken.
Excuse me, each commissioner should have this image. Eileen Boken, again speaking on my own behalf. The image that I've submitted today is from the aftermath of last year's Pacific Palisades fire. Beachfront homes burned to the ground because the LA Fire Department didn't have the infrastructure to use ocean water to fight catastrophic fires. After the 1906 earthquake and catastrophic fires, which destroyed 80% of San Francisco, a firefighting water system independent of the drinking water system was implemented and referred to as the Auxiliary Water Supply System, or AWAS. It used bay water as its primary water source, along with seismically resilient pipes, which are also used high pressure and high volume. Although the system was initially only in the northeast quadrant, it has been expanded, but not to all neighborhoods. To expand to the west side of the city, the system would need to use ocean water instead of bay water. However, the SFPUC is proposing to use potable water and raw water from Lake Merced as source rather than ocean water to expand AWAS on the west side. West Side residents have expressed concern on becoming the next Pacific Palisades. I would urge BAWSCA members to analyze using bay water and ocean water as sources for firefighting, for fighting catastrophic fires in their own jurisdictions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, good. We'll move on to item number 7, reports and discussion with the status of the SFPUC. We do have a question. Oh, we do. Who goes first? Director Snyder?
Thank you.
followed
Just
by Director
going
Nash.
back to Director Stone's request, I've been trying to find some research that I've been doing, having attended the SFPUC meetings in San Francisco, and they go into how they finance all of the projects that we ultimately pay for. So for using the Millbrae Operations Center, which is the most recently quoted at $426 million, that's the dollar price now. Yes, I've documented it all, $426 million. So basically $500 million. If bonds are taken out to cover that over a 30-year time period, what we would pay for that. My request, and I put that through to our finance director because I am not an economist, but when we come back and talk about the various capital improvement projects, and there's a dollar amount, that's the dollar amount today, not the dollar amount that we will all be paying over the course of 30 years to pay off that bond. And I think that that would be a good data point to add in all future discussions, both at the policy committee level
Okay.
and at the board level.
Good, as
It
an
showed
agenda
the
item.
increase that an individual customer would pay is phenomenal increase over the next 30 years, just on one project. Thank you.
Very good. Director Nash.
Thank you. I wanted to go back to Director Stone's request to have an action item in a next meeting, and wanted to see what the status was on that. I wasn't sure from the discussion.
Oh, we said we're going to agendize that.
It will be agendized?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I cannot tell you if next meeting or the meeting after, but like
But it will
we
be
said
agenda-
on the meeting on the drought, it will be agendized, so everybody will know ahead of time.
Thank you.
Fair enough? Good, thank you. All right, anything else? Okay, move on to number 7. Mr. Francis, please.
Good evening, BAWSCA board members and BAWSCA chair. I've put a fairly short presentation together tonight. There's a lot on the agenda. I knew there would be a lot of public comment prior to this one. So my first slide just gives a quick update for you folks in terms of BAWSCA's role and what SFPUC prepares relative to their capital improvement plans, as well as the WSIP, the Water Supply Improvement Program effort. SFPUC prepares a 10-year CIP. They prepare it every 2 years, so we're currently in a year where they prepared one in February, and their Board of Supervisors adopted it. Just as a reminder, I know cost is an issue. It's come up already tonight. Project spending that we need to, that impact our rates, our wholesale customer rates, are in the first 2 years of the CIP. If you see a project in year 9 or 10, such as the potable reuse project on the peninsula, where the major cost is coming in year 9 or 10, that is not affecting the wholesale customer rates. It wouldn't until it actually makes its way into the first couple of years of the CIP. So just to clarify, nothing in this current 10-year CIP is funding or capital spending towards alternative water supplies. That is not impacting our rates. BAWSCA tracks project development plans, and we do have an influence on what work will be performed. Just a few examples. BAWSCA had heavy engagement in the Mountain Tunnel project back in the mid-2010s. We believe that we were effective in getting them to put together a technical advisory panel, which ultimately led to a cheaper solution. There's a couple of other projects. I just listed them here. I can go into the details if asked. There's a Palo Alto pipeline project that the SFPUC did a lot of work on. The Daly City Recycled Water project, I can give you some examples of our influence on that one. Ultimately, again, we've had some good work together efforts with the SFPUC that have resulted in cost reductions to the CIP. Presently on the Hetchy CIP, there's a big project that I'll show you a slide on coming up, the Moccasin Penstock project. We've been able to talk with the SFPUC, and I think they'd agree that we're having a valuable effort with them to make sure that we'll come up with what ultimately will be the best preferred alternative. BAWSCA has engagements with SFPUC on the quarterly CIP efforts. We meet basically 4 times a year for each of the CIPs. BAWSCA staff and SFPUC staff engage with the folks that are actually assigned to watch the projects during their final planning and engineering and into construction. We also have engagement on the Water Supply Improvement Program quarterly reports. Again, WSIP was started, as Director Bro had mentioned, back in the early 2000s. Thankfully, that project is almost completed. It's mostly a seismic upgrade type effort, 50-something projects in WSIP, only a couple are left. But we do meet to talk about the status of those last 2 projects, which are still underway. So really quickly, I've only got essentially 1 or 2 projects per CIP that I'm going to share tonight in the interest of time. For the Hetchy CIP project, 1 project of interest that I wanted to talk about that shows up in their 3rd quarterly report is the Moccasin Penstock project. Penstocks basically deliver water from Hetchy along basically a pipeline route ultimately that leads to the Moccasin powerhouse and the rest of the connections to our transmission systems that bring the water into the Bay Area. Right now there's a need to replace those penstocks. They're 100 years old. I won't go into the details, but they need to be replaced either with either 2 new penstocks, perhaps buried underground, or maybe a tunnel. They're looking at different ways to take those existing ones out of operation and put some new facilities in place. What's happening is they're doing a geotechnical investigation, drilling along that hillside. For those of you that have visited Hetchy, and I'll echo some of the director's comments that visiting Hetchy is really a great way to understand our water system for those of you that haven't done it. They're basically, I want to say it's almost like hanging a drill rig along that hillside because it's a much steeper hillside than maybe it looks like in this photo. Drilling and boring into the rock to identify, okay, what is the underlying geotechnical conditions? If we put in a tunnel, how easy or how hard would that be to do? The SFPUC staff have also released what's called a request for interest in RFI. That goes to potential construction contractors, and what we're trying to do, or what they're trying to do, is identify, okay, if I do this solution, how hard would that be? How easy would that be? It's a way to collect sort of opinions and understanding about a project before you actually have to put a final design together and go out to bid. So we're thinking about solutions together with the SFPUC staff and actually interacting with contractors. And that's a formal way to do it without violating any, any procurement policies or legalities of the situation. The alternative analysis report, that's the one that BAWSCA is particularly interested in. And AAR will take a look at the different alternatives, either buried pipelines or perhaps a tunnel, come to some conclusions about which one engineering-wise would be the best effective, and also what cost would each alternative be, and likely suggest here's the alternative SFPUC wants to go with. BAWSCA will weigh in on that. This technical advisory committee that SFPUC has agreed to put in place is beginning to meet. Again, that's kind of how we saw the mountain tunnel unfold, with some technical experts that are not necessarily SFPUC employees, but professors or really knowledgeable people at things like penstocks and tunnels and large diameter pipeline installation. Switching to the WSIP, a couple of projects I'm bringing up. One is quite controversial. One of our board members no doubt might make a comment tonight. One of them is actually a good reason to celebrate. So I'm going to start with the one to celebrate, which is the Southern Skyline Ridge Trail. It's about a 6-mile extension of a trail for hikers and people that like to get out in nature. It's almost done. It'll be sort of adjacent to Highway 92, kind of running north to south. It's part of the Bay Ridge Trail that is a broader Bay Area construction effort. They're almost done with it. It's a beautiful trail. You can kind of see in this image that I captured. I think it's going to be a wonderful recreational activity for our region here along the peninsula. It's almost done. Hydroseeding is about over. What I've understood talking to the project leads for SFPUC is that sometime probably in August to late August, it'll have its grand opening. The actual date is yet to be finalized. I do know that at least in terms of some of the BAWSCA board members, we're likely going to be reaching out to you because there may be an actual opening ceremony where potentially we could take part in. But the idea is to have the trail open this fall to the public so they can enjoy the beautiful views. Millbrae Operations Center, we've talked about this here at the BAWSCA meeting before, and we've also talked about it at the BPC. I'm just going to note that there are a lot of elements as part of that operations center. There was shops that were going to necessitate taking the OSH building out of operations and build some shops. SFPUC also planned on extensive modifications to their existing operations center building, as well as constructing another building for dealing with water quality and other lab space. So a lot of proposed changes to that site, but a lot of public concerns. Chief among the public concerns was something that we had heard from, and SFPUC heard from 3 of the local assembly members, including Diane Pappen. A letter was issued that requested that SFPUC considered an additional alternative, which was to preserve the OSH store, but continue to look at developing what you need to develop on that site within that smaller footprint, should the OSH store remain in place. So the way that we've been updated by the SFPUC is that work is nearing complete in terms of that updated alternative analysis. What we've been told by the SFPUC staff is that the goal that they have is to get that report finalized such that by August 15th, they can share that with the 3 assembly members who they're essentially doing this work in response to, and that BAWSCA, as well as the city of Millbrae, will be copied on that report. So that's the latest update I have on that project. I know it's of interest to the folks, so as I hear more about what that report says, we'll be back to you and talk to you about it. Last but not least, I'll talk a quick note about the water supply improvement program. 2 projects left in WSIP. Once those are done, WSIP will be over, which would be something to celebrate. I do want to say the Alameda Creek recapture project is going to take a while to get completed, probably up to the year 2032. Just in a nutshell, what that is we're taking water that's released from Calaveras Reservoir, goes down into a creek, Alameda Creek, and once that water has traveled a certain section of that creek, it's no longer necessarily needed to meet fishery needs within that stretch of creek or biology needs. We can pick it back up and put it back in the reservoir for a water supply. So it's kind of a, if you will, kind of a rolling release of water and recapture. Challenge with that is it's an old rock quarry where we would be doing that capturing of the water. Complicated project. I won't go into the details here tonight, but there needed to be a redesign because the slope of that quarry is kind of unstable. We need to, or the SFPUC will need to make sure that that slope is stable and that they can handle the fact that there would be water going in and out, up and down in that quarry that they have to then pump back into the reservoir. So likelihood is that will take until 2032 to complete. From BAWSCA's perspective, we're looking at a final alternative analysis report to review so that we can understand, okay, is the budget needed in place or is more money needed? And as well as time, is there going to have to be another extension? Will it take longer than 2032 to complete? So that question is yet to be answered, but we're looking at that. Last but not least, another big water supply project here on the peninsula, kind of right in this neighborhood where we're at right now. A big regional groundwater storage and recovery project. I have pretty good news to report on that. We're nearing the completion of the regional groundwater and storage and recovery project, but there's a little asterisk by that. One of the elements of the project is to basically put in a pipeline to convey groundwater from where our wells are up to Cal Water's South San Francisco system. The alignment of that pipeline, unfortunately, gets in the way of a PG&E underground service conduit. The trenching kind of identified that there was an alignment conflict. PG&E takes a long time to deal with. They're not easy. They just don't say, oh, give us a week and we'll help you. It's more like give us 2 years and we'll help you. No offense to PG&E. But that's delaying it a little bit. I'm not going to point the finger at San Francisco PUC and say it's their problem. They should have dealt with this. I will point the finger at PG&E, though. I think PG&E didn't help make this situation easy. But that one's, it's close to being done, which is a good thing. So that completes my brief update of the third quarterly CIPs. My thought is every now and then I would come to you folks and share what's happening from a CIP perspective. I know there was some questions at earlier board meetings about not hearing enough about what BAWSCA does to track the CIP and WSIP efforts, and my hope is that the memo, which was more detailed, as well as the presentation tonight, gave you a bit of comfort to know that we are certainly engaging and tracking the CIPs. That's it.
Very good. Thank you, Tom Francis. And we need to, before we do that, though, we need to take a vote, right?
We take comments on this and then we take a vote on this.
What's the procedure? Take a vote or take a comment?
So you can conclude this item, and then before we take up a new item, we should vote to extend the meeting.
So Director Snyder, followed by Director Showalter.
Thank you for the presentation. I just want some clarifications. So SFPUC was going to have an alternative plan by mid-July. That's now been moved to mid-August?
It's my understanding, because I asked when the alternative would be released, they said August 15th.
That was August 15th?
August 15th
Okay.
now, and you're correct. My memory before was that they would have a study done in July, but now the actual date I have is August 15th.
Thank you. Now, your slide says that you're doing this at the behest of 3 assembly members, of which the City of Millbrae is appreciative. But this has also been a request of the City of Millbrae and the Millbrae board member to BAWSCA for many, many months, and you seem to ignore that. Third, there has been communication between the general manager and the city manager of Millbrae talking about concerns that go beyond what you have addressed on that. For every member here, there is not one of you that has a corp yard on El Camino Real, on Foothill, on any of your main commercial avenues. It does not exist anywhere in California, all the way down to the Mexican border. This will be the first time a corporation yard will be placed in a city on its main commercial line. Now, unlike most cities, Millbrae has one commercial street, El Camino Real, and then 4 blocks of a little street called Broadway. That's it. That's all we have. All of you should start getting familiar with legal concept of regional agency sovereignty. Now, again, Millbrae is unique in the entire Bay Area that we have more regional sovereignty agencies than any other city in the Bay Area. That makes us unique, and that makes putting a corp yard and big trucks on El Camino Real, as we're working on design a Grand Boulevard, and we evacuate San Bruno, Millbrae, Hillsborough, and Burlingame on Millbrae Avenue, which is also a tsunami zone and a high fire risk, almost impossible to do. I know that BAWSCA keeps being reminded that we do not have a say on a project, but this project, no matter what and how it rolls out, does not fit within emergency evacuation plans. It does not fit with Grand Boulevard. It does not fit with Millbrae's financial well-being, of which SFPUC is our major landowner, followed by SFO, neither of which pay property taxes on that. This is significantly harmful to us. I understand at the policy committee, someone said, oh, it's just Millbrae's problem. No, there is another economic model that says where Millbrae is actually subsidizing all the rest of you by the unique situation SFPUC has on Millbrae. I look forward to seeing the August 15th. I certainly hope that it is shared with the city manager and the city council of Millbrae, of which they take August on recess, but I'm sure they'll be happy to come back and get a report on something that is devastating to the city of Millbrae. Thank you.
Director Showalter.
Just a couple of questions that are just of interest to me, and I think other
Sure.
people probably too. Also, I would like to thank you for this report. I am one of those people, probably most of us, who really think that what we do in the oversight of specific projects is really important. So I appreciated the report to learn about it. But I did wonder about a couple things. One is the Tesla ultraviolet light treatment facility upgrade project. I visited that on the Hitachi tour, which is great. But they're getting an auxiliary power supply. Do you know what that is? Is it?
Yeah, I'd just to be clear, I'd need to follow up and talk to them, but I know that they do have like diesel generators, and they also have out there's this interest in you know, solar power, that type of thing too.
Yeah, Tom, I was just on the Hetchy tour, and a number of others were, sorry to interrupt. And obviously Steve or Allison would be the best to answer this, but the uninterrupted power supply, which is the flywheel technology that they have, is old. It's basically served its useful life, and so they're looking for a replacement for that. That's the power supply that comes on instantaneously when the power goes out, and allows for time, which is not very much time, but time for the generators to kick on, because it's very important from a water quality standpoint that those UV lights, that they don't ever get interrupted.
That's
Because then
right.
we have a water quality emergency problem.
Well, anyway, I just wondered, and I always, you know, in this area, we're really trying to reduce our GHGs. We're always interested in solar and battery systems, so I wondered if that was one of them. Maybe in a future report someday, we'll
Sure.
find out what they come up with. And then the other one I wondered about is about the Regional Groundwater Storage and Recovery Project. Those have been very effective, other places in the area. And I wondered about this idea here that the wells are gonna go on and off kind of in wet and dry years. It's my experience that wells need to be tested on a very, very regular basis in order to be reliable. You can't leave a well off for 2 years and go back and flick the switch and expect it to work. So I just wondered what kind of testing the SFPUC is expecting to do to make sure that these wells remain in good working order. Is there a protocol that you've heard about?
Yeah, you know, I'll mention this could be a really long answer, but just to tell you the truth, a lot of these wells are already used as part of the groundwater resource for some of these cities up here. Like Daly City, for example, relies on groundwater, so does San Bruno. So we have put in maybe more wells or newer wells, but during a normal year or a wet year, chances are if there's excess water available that those cities would have purchased surface water from the SFPUC from, SFPUC would say, you know, I really would like you to use less groundwater than you're currently pumping. And in return, during, you know, I'll just basically give you some free SFPUC water. And I'm gonna take credit for that groundwater that you're not pumping, even though you're pumping some groundwater anyway. So that during a dry year, I can pump, when I say I, SFPUC, which is all of us too, and BAWSCA, can pump that groundwater and use it as our dry year supply. So it's kind of the wells are still in use is what I'm saying. It's just,
Well, that's good. That's very reassuring then.
Yeah. The other, there could be some other wells that are only used during a dry period or primarily used, and San Francisco PUC is gonna have an O&M plan that they're putting together that you know, clarifies how they're maintained, how they're operated. If for some reason a well is not used very frequently, that it's exercised on a regular basis, so the pumps aren't just left to rot, so to speak.
Well, that's great. We had some trouble with that a long time ago in Mountain View, and so we have changed how frequently we use those wells. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Director Andrews?
Thank you for the report, and I like the quarterly highlights. Wanted to know if you can have some kind of graph or the table showing percentage complete versus program, just so people can have a better framework of the overall CIP that's happening in the report. But looking at it from how much money is being spent on facilities versus pipe versus other type of infrastructure, I think that will help with some of the comments we heard in the other item, but also for just having a dashboard of some sort for us to look at.
We can certainly do that, and so next time I come back to you and give an update, I'll attempt to provide some different graphics, so to speak, or summaries, and I'll be looking forward to your input.
Okay, thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. So we need to take a vote to extend the meeting.
Would you like to call for comment before we do that on this item?
Public comment. Do I have any public comments? Directors, public comments? None. Okay. So we'll ask for a motion to extend the meeting. 9:30 is the max?
Second, and I will say, it's a hard stop at 9:30. We have to be out of the building.
Lourdes, is that correct?
Deb is actually checking the reservation. I think we can go at 9:45 at the very latest.
We're gonna need all of those.
Lourdes, what about cars in the parking lot underneath? Do those get?
Yes, staff will stay so that they can open the gates for cars that are parked
Thank you.
downstairs.
That's why we have Lourdes. Okay, thank you very much. So I need a motion to extend. So motion by
And
Barbara
I
Pierce and
I
second by
seconded it.
Vice Chair Cardy. The motion till 9:45, right?
9:30, because we have to be,
Wait a minute.
yeah.
Okay, we're gonna stop the meeting at 9:30 so that we can have 15 minutes to get the cars out. So the motion is going to be till 9:30, and we do have a lot of grounds to cover still. Okay, roll call, please.
Director Andrews.
Aye.
Director Bro.
Yes.
Director Chambers.
Aye.
Director Cohen, no. Director Duncan.
Yes.
Director Hamilton.
Aye.
Director Hardy.
Yes,
Director Jordan.
Yes.
Director Kiesel.
Aye.
Director Manalo.
Aye.
Director Mellinger.
Reluctantly, yes.
Director Mickelson. Director Nash.
yes.
Director Piccolotti. Director Pierce.
Yes.
Director Ragsdale.
Yes.
Director Schneider. Director Showalter.
Yes.
Director Stone.
Yes.
Director Vella.
Yes,
Director Zichterman.
Yes.
okay,
Passes.
thank you. So we'll move on to item 7B. Mrs. Shuri, please.
Yes, good evening, Board of Directors. I'm happy to present an update on BAWSCA's Long-Term Reliable Water Supply Strategy 2050. Tonight's presentation is on our Emergency Resilience Framework. This is something that's important, I know, to all of your agencies. And the goals for today's presentation is really to share some context and findings related to the Emergency Resilience Frameworks for the BAWSCA region, and to really seek your input from the BAWSCA board on both the analysis and the recommended potential actions. And this is work that we're doing with our consultants, EKI. Now, I present this slide every time I give a presentation on Strategy 2050. It really outlines what our purpose is for Strategy 2050. And then we have 6 objectives that are aligned with providing the purpose of strategy. And today we're going to be focusing on Objective 2, which is to establish a framework for collectively maintaining and improving regional water supply reliability and resilience. So, we can't plan for every single scenario, but better understanding what some of these emergencies might look like in the future, seeing what the emergency framework looks like currently at all of our agencies and elsewhere, and seeing what else we can potentially do in the future. Now, the strategic value to this is really the evaluating both the existing and potential frameworks to really build that regional resilience to both natural and human-induced threats. So we're thinking about cyber attacks, we're thinking about fire and earthquakes. But the key outputs from this emergency resilience frameworks is threefold. First, it's that existing frameworks assessment. So we have looked at an inventory of emergency resilience frameworks that relate to, that could be applied for our BAWSCA agencies, and the best practices from several other regions outside of BAWSCA. The second one is the improvement opportunities, is really identifying what these gaps and actionable opportunities might look like to strengthen regional emergency resilience. And that's part of Strategy 2050. And then the recommended next steps. So we have some clear and prioritized potential actions for BAWSCA to advance. And we'll go through some of those tonight. Now, we've had multiple meetings. This actually started back in December of 2025, where we actually had a WMR workshop where we reviewed existing frameworks and then identified what some of these top threats are to your agencies. We also met with SFPUC, the emergency resilience staff, to review the existing emergency resilience frameworks there related to the regional water system. And we had multiple other meetings with the WMR where we reviewed some of the recommended emergency resilience potential actions that we will be discussing tonight. Now, going back to that meeting that we had, that workshop we had in December with the member agencies, one part of that was providing a survey out to see what are the key regional threats to your agencies. And we saw that with the top responses, the three top responses that we saw is infrastructure failure, so due to both the condition, so aging infrastructure, that's 40%, and earthquakes. So that was 28% of the agencies have put that down. And then cyber, 13%, and then wildfires, 7%. So we got those survey results, and then we saw what are some potential actions and what are the frameworks that we can kind of build, knowing that these are some of the key regional threats in the BAWSCA region. And then we looked at some of the existing framework. This is the evaluation approach. So we didn't want to just look at on the local level. We looked at it in 5 different levels, county-wide, regional, state-wide, and nationwide. And we saw each of the frameworks that were assessed, you see on the right there at each of those levels. And what was interesting is to see is that all of your agencies are doing a lot in preparing with your emergency response plans, your risk and resilience assessments. There is a lot of work done. There's a lot of material already out there. Director Showalter, I remember, the last board meeting when you spoke briefly about the emergency that occurred and how other agencies kind of stepped in and helped out. So I think we have a really a good place here in the fact that we have a really strong foundation in being able to help one another, and we want to kind of build off of that with this. So we brought it down to 4 specific potential opportunities of interest. The first being some things that we can provide on the BAWSCA level. One being the templates and resources. So developing some easy to implement templates to customize for before, during, and after emergencies. This is like some examples are boil water notices, after action reports, and site condition assessments. We can collect that, if any of your agencies are even outside of the BAWSCA region, we can collectively hold that either on the BAWSCA agency portal, just so we have some inventory that we can just have in store. The second is training and exercises, so having sample desktop emergency exercises on the local agency level, and then having more regional trainings and exercises. And then we can have them either, by county or having more specific for smaller agencies. The third is communication plans and protocols. This is again regional level as well as like inner BAWSCA agencies. We've already through Strategy 2050 kind of outlined some of the interties, and what we're hoping that we're also going to continue to do is seeing where we can optimize some of these interties, and this kind of ties into that. And then having more coordination with the county OES emergency response team, helping our agencies with that relationship that they have with their county OES. And then finally, that peer learning and knowledge sharing. So having and organizing workshops with member agencies to discuss emergency resilience topics and concerns, to really share our experiences and lessons learned from events that have occurred at agencies across the region. And we actually have something in place for our water loss. It's called our leak work group, where we meet every few months and we discuss, water loss, legislative level, and ways in which we can reduce water loss. So this would kind of be like the same type of framework, but on the emergency resilience side. So we grouped it into 4 different groups, but then we also wanted to look at what can be implemented. Again, this is potential actions on a short-term, mid-term, and long-term basis to see what is more easily implemented compared to some other actions. So on the recommended potential actions on the near term, so this is something that could be implemented within 1 year, is really to review the regional emergency resilience contact roster. SFPUC does an excellent job of annually updating that, but we know that there are a lot of employees that move around, so being able to just review that, making sure that's up to date. We can solicit shareable templates and compile into that regional library that I had mentioned. That could be either on the BAWSCA portal. Establish system to tracking trainings and exercises across the region. There are quite a few exercises that have already been done. Being able to kind of get resources and put them together as an inventory for that could be a possibility. And then again, launching that peer learning workshop series that I had mentioned. On the midterm level, this is something that would take a couple years to implement. One of which is to pursue grant funding applications for regional emergency resilience program. Could be through FEMA, and then identify opportunities to develop annual exercises to focus on wholesale customer scenarios. Again, how I mentioned, more maybe county-wide or even smaller, to moving around to smaller agencies to really look at some of these exercises. Scope and complete intertie operations analysis, develop post-emergency water quality confirmation testing protocols. Again, if one of the water quality facilities are down, where are some other ones located that an agency can tap into? Host first regional intertie tabletop exercises, facilitate expert-led sessions to support member agencies in implementing cybersecurity resilience actions across opportunity areas, identify opportunities for BAWSCA to support multi-agency coordination with county OES, and then develop equity-focused emergency communication frameworks. So we have all that materials, but having them in different languages and having an inventory of those would be helpful. And then finally, this is long-term. So this would take quite a few years, 3 to 5 years to develop, to kind of implement, one of which being develop a post-emergency recovery protocols. What are the steps to rebuilding on the water quality side, on the infrastructure side? That could be something, a larger document protocol to develop. And then the second is establish and maintain a regional mutual aid inventory of emergency equipment. This could be funded through grants or subscription model. Again, having an inventory of are there extra pumps? Are there some things that each of your agencies have that we have an inventory of? And then finally, establish resilience performance metrics. So the AWWA Water Resilience Portal has some indicators, but maybe we can see on an annual basis how agencies are doing with that. So that's where we are at right now. Really, the board input on the scope of the regional emergency resilience coordination is really helpful for me to hear, which opportunities you think we should really focus on or not. But this is going to be a part of the final Strategy 2050 report. We are hoping that we are completing the work of Strategy 2050 at the end of this calendar year, and then we'll bring back kind of like the final report early in 2027. So that is my update on the Strategy 2050 and the emergency resilience
Very good.
framework. I am happy to take any questions or
Thank you.
comments at this time.
Thank you, Mrs. Shuri. Director Bro?
Thank you, sir. So there was an item in the report that indicated there wasn't a framework for sharing the resources, and that's not historically correct, and that's not intended to be a shade on your report at all, but so let me explain how I know that and where we got there. So a number of years ago, the time frame escapes my aging brain, but within San Mateo County, they created the San Mateo County Public Works Mutual Aid Association. And I remember that only because some people have very kindly, perhaps over-kindly, identified me as the father of the effort when there were actually other people that participated and were very important in the role, but I intended to be, apparently I was the big mouthpiece of it. So, but what that organization did at the time, we took the 20 cities in the county and we divided it into 4 different regions. We had coordinators assigned within each of the regions. We came up with an agreement that said when and how we would share resources and how you go through that process. We did go through, now bear in mind, this is a major public works thing. It wasn't focused on water. We went through and we typed resources, and typing resources means you go to a FEMA document, a manual that they have, and you pull out the items that are in there that you identify, and you identify whether they're type 1, 2, or 3. We practiced a number of exercises, one time I think the last biggest one we had is we participated in a mass casualty exercise that San Mateo County Office of Emergency Services did, simulating a train wreck in the city of San Mateo. We actually delivered resources to it, so we proofed it. And in the interim, what I think has happened, and why I think your team didn't get it, is that all of the major players in it have either retired or gone off to other adventures. So there are young people that are like, what do you, that's such a terrible acronym. How could it actually be anything? So having said all that, if Dr. Shuri and the members of her team want to do an oral history with the last old head standing that may remember some of that information, I'm
We'd
happy to
love
make
to.
myself
Thank you.
available.
Yes.
Beautiful, thank you. Any more questions from the board? Questions from the public? Oh, we do? Okay. Director Malinger.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So if we could get the slide back with sort of the top 3 threats that we're looking at, I believe it was earthquake, damage, cyber, and general infrastructure failure, or infrastructure failure, cyber, and wildfire, and also earthquake. Something that I did not see in the staff report or in these slides that I would urge the agency to look at carefully is the increasing threat from small drones. No, I do not consider that in the same category. Ukraine has recently been conducting a strike campaign against Russia using small one-way explosive drones that have a range of 60 miles or more. That range is increasing. The potential for destructive or malicious behavior using such drones is substantial, and mitigating that risk should be a priority for all infrastructure providers. Thank you.
Good point. Thank you. Director Ragsdale.
Yes, thank you. I know we're rushed for time and everyone's a little tired, so I just want to encourage people, if you think of something else in the middle of the night or you're talking to your water management rep, just let Nagin know through our CEO if you have something you want added or something you really liked in the plan. Thank you.
And I should add, this has been to the water management rep, so a representative of your agency has seen these slides and has worked with us on them. So they've been providing input throughout the process.
Thank you. Any public comments? Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to item 8, CEO reports, the Bay Delta Plan for update.
Great. So in the interest of time, I'm going to stay here because I have a very short presentation. We're really going to talk about one slide. So Lourdes, could I get the next slide? Or, sorry. Thought it was going to be fast. Next slide, yeah. Great. So there's no substantive update on Bay Delta plan. I did want to indicate that there was an interesting update of the staff's work plan of the State Water Board, which take from it what you will, but the document does indicate that there's an expectation among the State Water Board staff that there will be a peer-reviewed version of the the draft scientific basis report this summer. So we're already in the summer, so that's good. We'll see if that holds to what actually happens. We've not seen anything on time from the State Water Board in my tenure here, so I don't know if that really means summer or not, but that's a good sign. And it also, the staff work plan did indicate that this is an important part of the work plan. So take from that what you will, but wanted to make you aware of that. The only other, next slide, Lourdes, is just to clarify dates and when we might discuss things in the future. The appeal is ongoing, and as we informed you a couple of meetings ago, we did file our opening brief March 15th. The state isn't expected to file their reply brief, State Water Board, until September 21st. So we'll give an update on that after that time. Probably at our October meeting or November meeting, I guess. So that's it for me.
Very good.
Next is yours.
Mhm. Any questions from the board? Yeah, Dr. Showalter?
Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned in your written report was the BAWSCA partnership with Water Now Alliance and the Pacific Institute to scale water use efficiency investments. And I just wanted to thank the staff for getting this together. I've been on the Water Now board for about 10 years now, and we are a program that is designed to educate local elected officials about the value of conservation efforts and reduce barriers to getting those conservation programs carried out. And over the last 10 years, we've developed this thing called the Project Accelerator. And generally, that has been to do sort of small projects with a specific water agency or a specific town to help them carry out a conservation measure that isn't on their own property, such as turf buyout programs or toilet replacements or things like that. But, and another thing that we have done is we have gotten a memo approved, a Gatsby Governmental Accounting Standards memo approved, that basically says that it's okay for agencies to use bond money to pay for these kinds of conservation efforts. And that's really valuable because that means you can do them much faster, and that means you can get the savings much faster. So anyway, this Project Accelerator, we are doing two, one in Colorado and this one in California, is to create some foundational policies that support the use of bonds or loans to fund conservation efforts. So it's essentially to help us figure out how to pay for these better. And we get 200 free hours of technical assistance from this grant. So anyway, I just wanted to bring this to everybody's attention. It's a great thing, and we should be proud of our staff for making this arrangement for us. So thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any more comments from the board? None? Thank you. Any public comments? Hearing none. Okay, the next topic is item 8B, which is the CEO, General Manager Performance Evaluation. The process is not gonna be that much different from last year for all of you here, because last year, the past chair and I had several conversations, and we kind of adjusted it to make it as simple as possible. What I'm gonna ask is that we want to hear back from everybody. Now, last year, Tom Chambers and I kind of divided the board, and we made phone calls. I'm not gonna do that, okay? We're all adults here, So we need to hear from everybody. For this effort, this year, what I did is I appointed an ad hoc committee to kind of spearhead the performance evaluation for the general manager. And I appointed the following directors: Director Tom Chambers, Director Greer Stone, Director John Weed, and Director Karen Hardy. And I will be like an ex officio member of this committee. But these will be the subcommittee or the ad hoc committee who are going to lead the performance evaluation process, okay? So if you have any questions, so if you're gonna get a phone call, it's gonna be from one of them, okay? But we do wanna hear from everybody. It's important for all of us, it's important for our general manager to hear. Now, some of you are newer and you may not have had the ability to interact with our general manager as much as others, but from your perspective, you need to do that performance, and you have not done this. This is not the first time you're doing it, so, okay, it's not your first rodeo. And that's it. And then at the beginning of next week, you will receive an email with the instructions and what you need to do and all of that, okay? And again, it's not gonna be that much different from last year. We did a lot of work last year to avoid having to repeat that, okay? That's it from me on that. On the closed session, we did talk to the attorneys, and they're telling us that there's not that much change. If anybody feels that we need to have a closed session, we could, but there's literally not much new development that happened. I see the X marks going on. So, okay, so we'll skip that. And then, no report after closed session. Am I doing okay? Legal? Okay, good.
No report, no closed
Okay,
session.
additional time for any public comments? If anybody, we do have a few minutes from any public comments. Anybody? Online, nothing? Oh, we do. Director Jordan, you have your hands up.
I have something under director's comments.
Yes.
So I guess I'll let you finish public first.
Okay, very good. So public is finished. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Director's
So-
comments.
Okay, thank you. So, in the press, there's a lot of concern these days about how much water data centers use, and there are some places in the Bay Area where data centers are being built. I attended a training session just a few weeks ago from one of the leading companies on design of modern data centers, and learned in that a modern data center only needs to fill the water once and then recircs from there. So it's a closed loop system. There's an interview on CNBC just earlier this week that I think we can, if directors are interested, GM Schmiegel has a copy of that, and we can share it if that is of interest to anybody. If you're faced with data centers, I know, of course, Santa Clara is, but again, the modern design doesn't need a continuous stream of water like they used to, and that's an important issue that I think a water agency could regulate on and say, okay, you have to design it this way if you want it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Director Hardy?
Since
We
Santa
are on
Clara
the
only
director's
has
discussions, by the way.
58 data centers, I think I'm the expert in the room.
Very good.
I will tell you that there's been a lot of hype, as Director Jordan said, and a lot of concerns. But the reality is, especially these newer designed, it's using reclaimed water. And most of them are closed loop, and they they even mist the water for the cooling. And so the reality is, they've got it down to about the same as 2 households. So that really shouldn't be the concern if they're using the modern realities and good design. And as I said, we're up to 20%. A lot of that is, not all of it is data centers, but a lot of it is. And that's our manufacturing. And it hasn't been an issue. So if anybody wants to talk to me about data centers offline, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any more director discussions? Director Andrews, please.
I would just wanted to thank the CEO for putting the article in the packet. But also, is there any way I could just have a presentation here at BAWSCA so we can say that we had it agendized as a discussion and we can forward it to our agencies, because it is something I deal with month over month about data centers. And I know a lot of energy, no pun intended, is being spent on water, but it's really energy. And just trying to figure out how can we give a fact page response about what happened in Santa Clara, how did they get 58, and what is the future of data centers, so I can give it to my community. Thanks.
Good comment. Okay, so we're gonna try to do that. We don't have a timing yet, but we'll do the best, okay? Good. One thing I would like to add, quick one, because in our spare time, the general manager was very, very patient with me, and Lourdes, thank you so very much. But we did design, because somebody in the beginning said, what are you gonna do for us? And the first time we gave, was it chocolate kisses? And now we have a pin that we'd like to give to each director as a proud member of this body. So please, it's good. It signifies the service area of BAWSCA, and then it signifies also when BAWSCA started and our mission of reliability, high quality, and fair price conservation. So this is one for each director. Yes. Wear it. Please, when you do come to this meeting, I would like you, everyone, including myself, to wear it, so that we're gonna be at the BAWSCA meeting at the time. So I know that each cities have, different jackets and logos and pins and all that. We're not gonna do that, okay? But we will do a pin, so everybody will get one. Thank you so much. Okay, good. Very good. All right. Okay, our next meeting is going to be on September 17th, and it's going to be at this location, unless you hear something different. It should be at this location. Yes?
Is there a policy meeting in August, because Chair Ragsdale implied that in the policy meeting before, but typically there's no August meeting?
We still have it on the calendar, just in case, but typically there is no August meeting. I'm holding it on my personal calendar, just in case, but typically there isn't. So, yes.
Yeah, there might be, and I'm hoping
Yes, yeah, I'm hoping there's not too, but just in case of emergency, I have it on my personal calendar, but usually there's not, and we'll find out at the time an agenda usually would come out. It would be a cancellation notice instead, but also a correspondence packet, so still look at that. Thank you for asking.
Okay, did everybody get one? Everybody? All right, good job. Don't lose it, okay? All right, thank you very much. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting? Second, we have a motion, we have a second. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.